This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
No, cut that. Keep that. Someday it's going to be worth something.
Russ Wakelin.
You put me in an ATST with frickin' Wookiees attacking me and whatnot?
Now you're talking.
And Paul Shoemaker in the third chair.
Wow, you'll just let any pirate on here, won't you?
With contributions from Total Fangirl
Vampires do not sparkle.
and our loyal listeners.
Are you crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming. Coming to the speed of a Klingon bird of prey with full impulse power upgrades and a stack of warp tokens.
Yeah.
Today's edition is brought to you by all of our fine friends over at Patreon. Today, that's Gordon Robb, Gordon Sampson, Gordon Woods, Greg Barlow, and Gus Hammer. Not a single one of those hard to pronounce. I'm Geekly McNerding and your host. Today, our panelists are Russ Win Adami Wakelin.
What?
And one of the powers behind the poop deck at Captain Con, Commodore Paul Thylextron Shoemaker. Let's begin. Issue number 1. As arguably one of the two most iconic science fiction franchises ever launched, Star Trek has earned its place in our culture through live-action television series, animated series, movies, and more. Throughout that time, the positive utopian future envisioned by Gene Roddenberry has settled into the cultural strata of Western civilization so deeply, even non-initiates know more than anything else that they think they might know about Star Trek. Question: how many episodes, within 5, have there been of Star Trek TV shows down through the years? Malcolm Reed Russ.
Ooh, I'm going to go with 672.
Chris Pike Paul.
Ooh, I'm going to price is right at 675.
Okay, well, let me see. So I would accept, let's see. 726 is the answer.
Ooh.
So I'd expect anything between 719 and 731, which, let me see, add 3, carry the 4, round up. Wrong! Issue number 2.
Close.
The genres in which we enjoy to immerse ourselves are myriad, with the top spots in constant flux as game systems and storylines grab us, take us for a ride, and then fade away. When we are forced to choose between two current favorites, say, Pirates versus Weird War II, it can be almost like choosing between one's children, or at least one's nieces and nephews. Question: how many Milicianos Indios would it take to eliminate an M26 Pershing medium battle tank as a threat on the battlefield? Stanky Razin Russ.
More than I've got.
Pierre Le Picard Paul.
All of them.
Wrong! The answer is 2. 1 to play as bait, 1 to cut the rope that held the 2 giant forest logs up, setting them swinging in to crush the turret. Have you guys ever seen Return of the Jedi before? Jeez. Issue number 3. Although there are great debates over who might be the most important person on any ship, everyone knows who the top guy's going to vote for, and that's himself. Without the captain, he will say, the ship doesn't sail, the cannons do not fire, the wind does not blow. Of course, the bosun, the ship's doctor, and even the cook might beg to differ, but that's democracy at sea for you. Question: one of the most famous captains, Captain Kidd, was a legitimate sailor before he turned pirate, or did he? What building in New York City did William Kidd lend his ship's systems to help build before he joined, or didn't join, the dark side? Woods Rogers Russ.
The Empire State Building.
James Plantain, that is just a piss poor knowledge of history right there. James Plantain Paul.
Russ took my answer.
See?
Which would have made both of you pathetically wrong. Trinity Church.
What?
Such a lovely church. Still
Really?
to this day. Issue number 4. Star Trek is often lauded as the most scientifically minded of the 2 greatest sci-fi dynasties of all time, despite the inclusion of rafts of technobabble and impressive-sounding nonsense, or most likely because of it. It is often cited as the favored franchise of scientists and science-minded types around the world. Question: what is the significance of the Star Trek Next Generation episode title 11001001? Rebby Russ.
They are taken over by a race of binary aliens.
Pulaski Paul.
I think that it's because they have to reverse the polarity of the tachyon field or some other such.
Well, let's see. Let's delve in, shall we? The 11001001 is binary and converted to 201 decimal or hex C9 under the Z80 microprocessor series. The Z80 was used in the TRS-80 Model 1, 3, and 4, and for the sound processing in the Sega Genesis. The C9 in assembly language is known as the unconditional return. In addition, on another machine language, 201 decimal corresponds to no valid machine instruction at all, which translates to NOP, no operation for 2 machine cycles. What's not to love about all that? That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
This episode of the D6 Generation is brought to you by
Battle Foam, protecting your army so you don't have to.
And the War Store, bringing the war to your door since 1999, and that is for a decade or more. Hello!
Hello.
Hey!
Ooh.
Welcome to episode 203, Craig.
I don't really think we have to put all that much emphasis on the 2 anymore, Russ. I think it's
3.
blasé.
Welcome to 203.
It's so 2016.
Of the D6 Generation. I'm Russ Wakeland.
And I'm Craig Galland.
And I'm Paul Shoemaker.
Hey, Paul!
Shoemaker!
Welcome back to the third chair.
A.K.A. Captain Paul.
The man
With
behind...
much fanfare.
Yes. One of the able-bodied privateers, as one might say, behind Captain Con. So, Paul, thanks for coming back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're excited to chat with Paul about all things Captain Con today. So we're going to talk a lot about what's coming up there. But also, we want to talk a little bit about Star Trek Ascendancy. Craig and I have finally had a chance to get down to the table and play it together. And, I don't know, we really enjoyed ourselves. So more about that in a little bit. But first, we have some business to take care of, Craig.
Yes, we have standing business.
We have, Paul, as you may have heard, we have a contest going on, sir.
We have a
Yes.
Stronghold Games D6G Pick Me contest on Twitter.
We do. So
Did I win?
Well, we're going to find out.
Did you enter?
Sadly, though,
that would be awkward.
Since you're in the third chair, you actually can't win. So hopefully, you didn't enter. But in any case,
sadly, just this one episode
right
happens to be the one you can't win.
You can't win if you're on that episode because that would imply hijinks. So we can't have any of that or shenanigans.
Yeah, no hijinks. I will step back from this one.
Right. Okay. Fair. So what the contest was we asked our listeners out there via Twitter to go ahead and tweet their battle cry / smack talk that their character in Dragon and Flagon might do in the midst of battle, right? And we asked you to include the hashtag D6GPickMe along with the Stronghold Games Twitter handle of @StrongholdGames and along with the @D6Generation Twitter handle as well. So what we've done is we have received we've received 39 exactly, right, Craig? 39
yes,
tweets.
39 exactly.
With all kinds.
Some very, very funny ones.
Some very good ones. Craig, do you have a favorite that you saw out there? Not that they're going to win. It's going to be a random winner, but any particular ones you liked? There were quite a few. One of my favorites was my hammer is finally crafted, and so am I. Think you can beat me? Wrong.
Oh, that was there. You go.
That was pretty good.
I like the not too horrible one was good.
Not too horrible was good. Only 250 pounds. Back in my day, my pole could hold 400.
That was a good one.
Some very good ones there. But anyway, we're going to do a random sample here. So Craig has prepared a couple of percentile dice, right, Craig?
I'll drink you to the table, landlubber.
Right. So Craig is now.
This is a big damn hero. The drunk warriors boast.
Some great boasts. So if you want to see them all, just head on over to Twitter and type in the search for the hashtag D6GPickMe.
D6GPickMe.
And you'll see all these great entries. Now, so Craig is now going to roll some percentile dice. And we're going to do this twice because Stephen Bonacore is nice enough to offer 2 prizes.
Bonaclaws.
Bonaclaws has offered 2 prizes. So the 2 winners.
I don't know what's happening, but I'm drunk and I don't care. That might have been my pick.
So what you want to do is.
Sadly, we don't get to pick them.
We don't. So what we're going to do here is we're going to ask you we're going to announce the winners right now via random selection. And then you 2 winners, you will need to go ahead and direct message us via Twitter, the same Twitter account you posted your thing on. And then we will pass that information on to Stephen Bonacore, and he will mail out to you any of the Stronghold games of your choice. Pick one, you get them. Craig found
Get ready for an all-you-can-eat buffet of fists.
There are some very good ones out there. So, Craig.
An achievement in ass-kicking unlocked. I like it.
All right, Craig, ready?
All right, ready? Ready? Here we go. Ready?
Give us a roll.
Okay. 23.
5, 6, 7, 8. 12.
High tech. Come at me, brah. Come at me. I'm just going to read them until you get which one wins.
1, 2, 3. Okay. The winner
I'm too
is...
strong to hold by this or any 6 generations. Oh, that's pretty cool.
All right. Our winner is Willie Williams.
Willie
with
Williams.
Twitter account at WillieBBQ. I like it already, Willie. And
Achievement in ass kicking unlocked.
Exactly right. So, Willie, make sure you direct message us and let us know via Twitter DM and I'm going to follow you right now, Willie, so we know that
My dragon is bigger than yours. Incidentally, so is my flagon.
All right. So now, Craig, we need you to roll for a second one. See who our second winner is.
Yes. The second winner is not that. Not that.
A little faster, Craig. It's great radio.
I'm rolling higher than I've ever rolled before.
Roll low, man.
Roll low. Oh, for the love of God. I wish I was rolling this good last night. It's a 28.
28. Let's see who 28 is. We know Willie's 23. All right. Let's see here. Twenty, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. What I'm counting to here, and we're going to go with it. If I missed one, it was random anyway. I'm going to go with Tyler Lipchin appears to be our winner. And his quote is, "I'm here to kick cardboard and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of gum." Excellent one, Tyler. So again, that's at T.O. Lipchin. So please go ahead and direct message us as well, Tyler. And you too are the big winner of your choice of a single Stronghold game. So congratulations to both of you, gentlemen. Nicely done. And I will follow you also so you can reply to us. Fantastic. Well, good rolling there, Craig. Well done, sir.
Thanks. Yes, I'm fairly good at keeping them on the table.
All right. Excellent. So thank you for that. And thank you to Stephen Bonacor, or Bono Claus, as we call him, for the great prizes to give away there. We really
Not anymore.
appreciate that. Right.
That's
not anymore.
that's so
and now
expensive.
Christmas is over shortly after this episode, so there you have it. Now, also, before we get to all the other things we talked about, we should talk about what we discussed when we ran into Paul at Dunkin' Donuts, Craig.
Well, actually, Russ, we had a first in the last chapter this time around.
Yes.
And actually made a decision in the last chapter, recorded live, while we decided what we were going to do at Captain Con this year for an event.
We did. So we had a nice discussion. Paul helped us decide what we would do at Captain Con 2017. Yeah.
We talked the pros, we talked the cons.
Right. We talked the pints.
Yes.
Talked the pints.
Exactly.
We talked resin water effects.
We did. So, Craig, if someone wants to listen to the Lost Chapters, what should they do?
They should listen to you. Tell them how to listen to the Lost Chapters, Russ.
That was terribly obvious what you just did there. So what you want to do is head on over to thed6generation.com. And in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a giant Patreon button. Click that. That will take you to our Patreon page, where you can then pledge your support in the form of a tip per episode. And if you choose to tip $2 or more per episode, you will get access to the entire Lost Chapter library. And it's like Netflix. Once you've agreed to help support the show, boom, hours upon hours of listening entertainment, additional listening entertainment. You know,
right.
Because 4 hours are free, but the extra half an hour,
that's right. That's where we get
That's where the value is. So there you have it. So
well, I don't know about that.
Thank you to all of our patrons for your support.
It's 70% less. Not too horrible.
It's quality over quantity.
I'm not good at math. I'm not sure what direction that would send it in. But
they may or may not be quality. So what's the time now for, Craig?
What's the time for now?
Achievements in gaming.
It is. And achievements is brought to us by all our fine friends over at Patreon. So, Paul, as our guest this week, what have you been playing lately?
Oh, well, I've been playing this really cool game called Spreadsheets and Organizing.
Oh, dear. That doesn't sound fun.
Sounds like a Euro game to me.
Yeah, it's pretty crunchy. But no, when I'm not running around doing that, I haven't had a chance to play a whole lot just recently, but I have been getting lots of shipments of games that I hope to play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some
Tell me about that.
Maybe it's time for a new category and achievement.
Right. Games I've not played but are sitting on my
Kickstarter
shelf.
games I've gotten but haven't opened yet.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, actually, I opened it last night. I got my Kickstarter copy of End the Line
I
from
did too.
Fight in the Box
Me
game.
too.
Mine just came in.
And
Yeah.
I did open that one. Very high quality. Very nice.
Yeah, isn't that nice in there?
Yeah.
I want to get it out on the table, and fingers crossed I might, this weekend or next weekend with the guys over. But besides that, I got to go way, way back to about 2 months ago for the last time I got a chance to actually play a game, when I had the rest of the Captain Con planning folks over, and we do our usual planning meeting, which consists of about an hour of planning and about 4 hours of eating Chinese food and playing Undercity from Privateer Press.
Sounds like
nice.
That's the way it should be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works.
Did you back Widower's Wood there, Paul?
Actually, I missed out on the Kickstarter due to logistics on my end, but I'm looking to pick it up because I like the mechanics of Undercity, and hey, scratch that Horde's itch.
Yeah, me too. And we got a small contingent that's looking forward to playing some Undercity next after we finish our level 7 campaign. So that is on the radar. Excellent. Anything else, Paul?
That's
plenty.
like I said, other than getting shipments of other people's games for the game library, that's about it. But I do have to give a shout out to the nice, generous folks at Mage Company and Steve Jackson for sending me some nice care packages of stuff I want to play.
Cool.
Very
There you
nice.
go.
Yeah.
Well,
All the coulda, woulda, shouldas.
well, maybe we'll get some of that time in at Captain Con. That'll be great.
Exactly.
So, Craig, how about yourself, sir? What have you been playing?
Well, before SteamCon, I had a few guys over, including Russ, and we played a quick game of Colt Express.
You sure it's not Cold Express?
No, it was Colt Express,
Okay, good.
and I have a heater in the pub, so no,
Okay.
it wasn't Cold Express either.
Just checking.
So that was fun.
Yep.
And then we covered all that stuff over at SteamCon,
Yeah.
and then yesterday I played Star Trek Ascendancy with Russell
Yeah, more about that later.
and Randy.
Mhm.
And then last night I went over and I played my first game in a long time of D&D 5e,
Ooh.
and it was a blast. Dave has put together our friend Dave has put together a limited adventure. It's just going to be 4 sessions and 4 and done, and it's like 24.
Ooh, neat.
The series 24. It's supposed to be all rogues, and this is kind of like we started at we are not started. We won't be leveling up in this. We are 3rd level rogues of one type or another, and you can multi-class. You could be like 1 level rogue, 2 level fighter, or whatever you wanted to do. And we're all trying to get into the Thieves Guild of what's that big giant city?
Which one? Baldur's
The
Gate?
one with
Waterdeep?
the
Waterdeep?
yes, Waterdeep. Yes, Waterdeep.
Neverwinter?
And no, Waterdeep. You can stop. Show off.
Sorry.
And so he actually has a real clock, and he's moving the time forward on the clock as we take
Well,
actions.
that's cool.
So we have 24 hours to do this heist, and it was a really
cool.
neat concept and really cool, and it makes for really interesting dynamics because his whole point was, think Ocean's 11. You're a team, it's camaraderie, it's like a fraternity, but a couple guys decided to go the chaotic evil route anyway. So it's made for a very interesting party dynamic, and there's so many traps, and it's ridiculous. You can't take 2 steps without a trap. So there's all kinds of, detect traps and disarm traps and all kinds of cool stuff. So it
10-foot
was a lot of
poles
fun.
and
It's a really cool, neat concept that he came up with, and I'm enjoying it immensely.
Nice. That's awesome. That's a really innovative idea. That's fantastic. How are you finding the 5th edition mechanics? You still like them?
Yeah, I played quite a bit. I mean, not nearly as much as you, but I love them.
Great.
It reminded me of my game with the Geek Nation Tours folks at Gen Con, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Very good.
What about you, Russ? You look like you've got a big, giant spreadsheet worth of games to talk about.
Yeah, well, due to SteamCon, I wasn't able to cover all the games I wanted to because we were at limited time with our friends Matt and Rich. So now I'm going to catch up on some of that. So what I missed last time to talk about was I've played now 2 more games of Seafall and really enjoying Seafall. It's funny too because I think we have to review Seafall somehow, Craig, but I'm not entirely sure how without spoilers.
Yeah,
but I
don't
will
know
say
that you can do that.
I will say that Seafall's been getting mixed reviews, and I don't know why because I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a lot. Of fun.
Is it one of those games that really depends on the crowd you're playing it with? Maybe.
I think it's because our working theory in our group is that the most successful Legacy game was Pandemic Legacy, which is a co-op. And I think people, because that might have been their first
they're
Legacy
coming
game,
from the co-op.
they're like, I want Legacy games to me mean co-op, and
right.
Seafall is not.
I could see how that would.
Right.
If you're ignorant of the Legacy game history,
yes.
I'm sure that could mess with your head.
And the other thing I've heard is that it's a lot of time investment. If it's not awesome, I'm not going to play the time in it. But I think it's good. I like it a lot. But I'm enjoying the naming of things and all that fun and discovering it and everything. And there's a little fantasy thrown in there. I'm liking it. a lot. Plus, it's got pirates, Craig, so it's always good.
Well, that's true. You can't go wrong with pirates.
Can't go wrong with pirates. That's right. Also played Colt Express with Craig, as he mentioned. Played a couple games of Star Trek Ascendancy. Then my friend Christian had a big games day again in his house. And there I was able to play more Star Trek Ascendancy, and I was able to play Conan, the game. But this time I was able to play Conan as the hero. So I've been playing as the evil overlord. It is just as fun as the hero. In fact, my favorite moment, what's interesting about the Conan game that I like the most, despite the fact, I like all the bling, the models are amazing. Of course, it's Conan, so that's great. There's some really interesting mechanics there. I got to get this to the table with you, Craig, too, so maybe we can review it sometime. But what I really like about it is there's always a very classic Conan moment during each game. So far, every game I've played, Conan has been left sort of like in an unknown state as the game comes to an end. So one of the first games we played, Conan was busily fighting this giant snake while the rest of the party ran off the board and won the game, but who knows what happened to Conan, right? Then in the last game I played, so in the missions, there's always an objective like find something, right? And in this mission, it was in a bar, and the objective was find the key. But what's cool is, and the key's in one of these chests. Now, you can unlock the chest, or you can carry the chest. So the move is definitely to unlock it because the chest is heavy encumbrance, really slows you down. So I'm playing Conan, I run up to the chest, try to unlock it. Of course, Conan, I failed the intelligence check. So I'm like, screw that, Conan. I pick the chest up and start running. All the bad guys all get in my way. So I actually leap onto the bar while there's no bad guys, run down the bar to the exit, then toss it off to my friend and they get out the door and win. So any game we have to run across the bar as a barbarian carrying a chest of loot is a win. So I'm really, really enjoying Conan a lot. It really captures the flavor of the franchise. And then also, got another game of Hordes in with my daughter. You'll notice sometimes I call it War Machine because sometimes I play my Signar versus her circle. But last week I played my Troll Bloods, and she had picked up some shifting stones, Paul.
Uh-oh.
So as
you're in for it now.
Well, yeah, so she plays Kaya, right? And so under the new things, Kaya's a little bit nerfed. Her teleport's not quite as her spirit door is not quite as dangerous, but it's still dangerous. She still gets me with it. But that combined with the standing stones, combined with the new Doppler bark, so Grim Angus just got way too close. And what I mean by that is moved away from my edge of the board, pretty much. And that was the end of that.
Yeah.
So I gotta really watch her. That standing stones now with Kaya is just like super dangerous.
That's an awful lot of. Wait, where was he?
Oh yeah, it's a lot of movement. It was a blast though, and she was the first game she killed me so quick. She goes, "Boy, that was over fast." I'm like, "Yes, thank you for mentioning that." But we're having a blast still. We started painting up some stuff, but I'll talk more about that when we get to modeling. So speaking of modeling, Paul, how about you? You getting any painting in?
Well, a little bit. I've been very, very slowly working on assembling and painting my butcher's team, and they're finally almost done. This started with, hey, Princess is a cool model. I want to paint a bulldog, and now I'm down to, well, as soon as I find a way that I'm happy to mount Boiler and get him painted up, I'll have a team that I can field. Other than that, cool. It's been not a whole lot of time at the painting desk, although I've gotten the odd Crix model that's been sitting around on my to-do list since the days of Mark 1 that are slowly making progress.
Nice. I love it. All right,
Cool.
that's good. Princess is an awesome model. I love the butchers are great.
Oh yeah.
Craig, how about you, sir?
Nothing.
What? That's unthinkable. You
Nothing.
never
I've
pick
been
nothing.
mending fences at home, man.
Oh, that's fair. Traveling on Thanksgiving.
We did
for
take
gaming-
off on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that was a tough
Ooh.
call. We lost a lot of
Yeah.
points there. I'm not going to lie. I
Yeah.
lost points too. It
Yeah.
was very tough.
Yeah.
So I did get a little painting in though, but I'm able to mask it with spending time with the children. So that's important.
There you go. See?
That's an important part of the. So I've been working on my war wagon for the Trollbloods, and I airbrushed it first, and I used some of the Privateer Press sort of the bronzy gold color. I forget which exact color I used. But it came out too bright because the airbrush is so good at applying. It was like very vibrant. So then I hit it with a sort of a brown wash, and man, did it pop. It looks awesome now. It looks all dirty, and I'm really liking that. So that's moving quick. So we're having a fun time with that. Also got all my hunters primed from SteamCon, assembled and primed. So, and I'm really loving, I think I mentioned this in a couple episodes ago, I got this new airbrush hood. So it's this sort of collapsible portable thing that you unfold it, and it creates an area where it's little LED lights so you can see what you're doing. And it's a little space, kind of like think of the hood above your oven, but turn it sideways so that you put your models in there. You can spray paint them, you can airbrush them, and it's got a fan in the back that sucks the air through a giant set of filters. And then that can either revent back into the room all filtered, or you can actually attach a hose to it and go it out a window or something. Really enjoying that a lot. It enables me to prime indoors in the winter and airbrush indoors in the winter. Really liking that a lot. Nice little gizmo. So very much worth the investment. I picked it up on Amazon, I want to say for less than $90, which is not a bad deal. Yeah, for if you're really into airbrush, I mean, you got to do a lot of aerosol painting, but if you're into that, I think it's definitely worth the investment, especially in the cold winter months.
I applaud your industrial hygiene.
Well, it doesn't help. So I tried this though. Here's one thing it still doesn't help: zip kicker. So zip kicker is so pungent that the wife is like, "You're using that stuff for the glue again, aren't you?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, that's not good."
Yeah.
So that's got to go outdoors or be used very sparingly. What happened is assembling the Guild Ball teams. The hunters are amazing, some of the most detailed, amazing sculpts, but because they're so small, little metal bits, I had to use zip picker to get them to stay. It was so close and fiddly, which ended up, I had to leave the room for a while after that, but it was good stuff. All right. So that's our painting and modeling. What about other geeky goodness? Movies, books, TV shows? Craig, how about, let's start with Paul. Guess first. Paul.
Yes, guess first.
Okay. Well, I guess I have had a little time for TV because I can do that while I'm on the laptop with Captain Con stuff.
Yeah.
So I've been it's been on my to watch list for a while, and I finally had a chance to binge watch my way through all 3 seasons of Dark Mirror. Well, 2.5 seasons. I got half of season 3 still to go.
Now, what'd you think of Dark Mirror?
What's that?
What are you thinking of it? How do you like it?
I'm torn between I really like it and it's very disturbing and creeps me out because it's, for those who aren't familiar, it's that what would our world be like with just a little tweak further of how technology will take us.
Ooh, yeah.
And, so last night I was watching an episode from season 3 where the whole premise is that pretty much everything in your life has now come down to your social media score of how much people like you on the Facebook equivalent. So it replaces your credit score and everything. And it's,
oh, wow.
And what that does to the human dynamic. So like I said, really well done and really cool speculative fiction, but kind of creepy because I could imagine us getting there in my lifetime.
Right.
So I've been doing that, and of course, keeping abreast of my addiction to Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, now are you enjoying that?
I like how that's going.
Are you liking it? Are you liking it? 'Cause I had to check out after a little while. Are you guys? Is it good again?
No, you checked out in season 1, didn't you?
No. I checked out in season 1. I came back. No. I was I liked it in season 1, even though it was kind of weak. I loved it in season 2, and then I checked out.
Oh, in this season, you checked like before the season started, or at the beginning of the season?
When it started turning into, we want to be a show about the X-Men, but we don't have the rights. That's when I checked out.
I don't even know anything about that. So,
well, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I mean, with them slotting in Ghost Rider into this season, it's a little more. I don't know. There's a little more of that sort of fantasy magic-y element to things and the supernatural element versus, the last two seasons, which are, sort of like, okay, well, there's some science here. It's science we don't understand, but there's science here.
Right.
And, this whole we're all running around chasing the magic book kind of thing is, I could see where that might rub the wrong way, but I'm still kind of addicted to all the characters, so I'm enjoying it.
I like it.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and then I guess the last thing I've been doing that's sort of geeky related, but actually could have fallen under gaming, is a little bit of computer gaming. Back when it first came out, I pre-purchased No Man's Sky.
How do you like that? It's getting mixed reviews.
Yeah, very mixed reviews. It depends on how much of the hype you read before it launched and what you came in expecting.
Okay.
For me, it was pretty much exactly what I was expecting, which was not quite a AAA level game, but it's getting there. And it, was just sort of this very chill fly around and look at cool things. And, you didn't have to put 100% of your attention in it all the time like you would with, with something that's a more action-oriented game. But they just came out with an update, I guess it was last week, maybe the week before. It was very recently at any rate, that put a lot of the stuff into the game that they had sort of promised from the beginning, like being able to build a base and teleport around back and forth to your base and hire aliens to do work for you and stuff. And just it's adding in the crunch. So I liken it to sort of, if people are familiar with Minecraft. We're going from the early days of Minecraft to the more current days of Minecraft, where it's like now we're putting more stuff in it, and it's so I got a little more excited about that and have played a few hours of that this week.
Cool. Oh, very
busy.
Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I the people who like it seem to really like it, and the people who don't like it, I think we're expecting a different game. It sounds like. Yeah.
There's a lot of really, really love or really, really hate out there.
Yeah. Craig, how about yourself, sir?
Well, I've been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'm still watching The Walking Dead more out of habit than anything else. I mean, the world is still cool. The characters are still fun-ish. The story is really stagnating this season for me. Negan, who's like supposed to be the badass of the Walking Dead world, is a little cartoony. Doesn't really fit into the gritty, gross realism that they've sort of built up season after season. So that still continues to slowly wear down, and eventually I just won't watch I just won't open that folder on my TiVo. And then Westworld, on the other hand, is insane.
It is. I'm halfway through the finale. I've not seen.
I'm exactly halfway through as well.
Yes, my wife had to travel, so now I can't see the finale until Friday.
I'm hoping desperately that we finish here tonight with enough time for me to run upstairs and see it before Karen gets home.
Yes, so
that's my only hope.
But everything leading up to where we are, including the first half of the finale, has been awesome. Oh my gosh. Yep. So I'm really liking that show. Paul, I take it you've seen the end.
I have not actually.
Oh, how far?
I have not seen Westworld.
Have you watched any part of Westworld?
No.
Okay, well you got to get into that.
It's been on my. People tell me it's really good, but no time. Yeah, I got to catch up.
And it is a show that demands your full attention because there's a lot of stuff going on that if you don't watch it carefully, you will miss. It's even the kind of show
that's what I've heard.
You can even watch it more than once and still see stuff. It's almost like Sixth Sense, where you can watch it again and all of a sudden see all the things that were the clues. Westworld's got a lot of that going on too.
Nice. That's why it's on my to watch list when I've got time to focus, because I love those kind of shows.
Oh yeah. A lot going on, a lot of clues. And don't read the internet because you'll know what to look for. So just kind of watch it and try to see if you can figure it all out.
Yeah, my Facebook feed has been a bit of a minefield recently.
Yeah. But it's awesome. I'm really enjoying it. Really great storytelling and interesting crafting. I don't know, Craig, how do you feel about it? Same way?
Yes, absolutely. It's I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, I thought you can't say anything much about it.
I mean, it's crazy. It's outlosting Lost. That for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I don't want to take a single chance to give anything away.
Right.
Wow. It's like that, huh?
Oh yeah.
All right, Craig, what else? Anything else?
Yes. Well, indeed. Funny you should ask. I am listening to London Falling, the show that the audiobook that I talked about last episode. It was recommended by listener Paul Owen. Thank you, Paul, because I am loving it. It just keeps getting better and better. It is dark. It is crazy dark. It's way past PG-13 on language, so you can't listen to it with the kid in the car. So that does limit the times I can listen to the book. But it is very much sort of like a dark version. Well, not really. It's not really a version of Dresden at all. But it's sort of like there's magic and supernatural forces, and it's all around us, but we don't realize it and we can't see it. And then that world and the world of undercover policing in London collide in this really crazy serial killer case that just is getting darker and darker and crazier and crazier and creepier and creepier. The writing is great. The narration by Damian Lynch is awesome. So that's London Falling from the Shadow Police series by Paul Cornell. Loving it.
Wow, cool.
And I am reading now this is interesting because it literally took me 3 days to figure out how to get Tales of the Space Marines Space Wolves. Like, I bought it from the Black Library because that's the only place you can buy it. Mm-hmm. And then to get it onto my phone through my Kindle took forever because it's ridiculous, because it's crazy, because they won't or wouldn't distribute it through Amazon. And I was about to do an entire Did You Ever Notice about it when they announced that they're going to sell through Amazon. So really not didn't give me much room there, guys. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know why there's a lot going on with the 40K universe right now. There's a lot of rumors that a lot of big things are happening. We've seen a bunch of one plastic Primarch show up recently. And so there's a lot of rumors that not real, fake, whatever, that the more standard loyalist Primarchs are going to start showing up again, and not in Warhammer 30,000, but actually they're waking up and returning from wherever they went in the Warhammer 40,000 timeline.
They've been napping.
So they were. So some of them were, Russ. Some of them were.
Right.
I believe Rogel Dorn has been napping for about 8,000 years. And nobody knows where Lehman Russ is, but he's probably sleeping under a bush somewhere.
Probably.
And so that's fun, and it's neat. It was neat to get back into the 40K universe and sort of immerse myself in that. But it just gets old. It's like, okay, we're gonna fight in this particular book right now. They're like trapped in Komorra with the Dark Eldar, and they're they've got all these space wolves, and they're just fighting them, forcing them to fight in the arena over and over again. So it's literally nothing but battle after battle after battle after battle after battle, and I'm getting battle fatigue. I'm getting grim dark battle fatigue. So I'm hoping the story picks up again. But anyway, that's me. What about you, Russell?
Well, let's see. We already talked about Westworld, so that's already set. Have you guys seen Moana yet?
No.
This is the new Disney movie. So, we're all Disney nerds, so we have to go to these. I usually enjoy Disney movies. I would say this is a medium quality Disney movie. Unfortunately, the songwriting was not up to the usual par.
Oh no!
And they had it was going to be hard to equal Frozen, and they didn't. But it was pretty good. It's tough for us. Disney gets into trouble when they don't have a villain. So this is one of those no villain episodes. And it can be done. Like Inside Out did a good job with no villain, but it's really hard, and it's kind of the exception. Generally, the best Disney movies have good villains. And also, I would say they're suffering from songwriting challenges. They got to get some stronger songwriters back in there. But it was still fun romp. Your kids will probably love it. It was still great. The effects, the water, where they've gotten now with water effects and animation is insane. I mean, I'll just say that it was just nuts.
Yeah.
It was a visual feast, but just the story was weaker than I'd hoped. Also, still enjoying Supergirl. It got a little less preachy, so that's okay. Hanging in there on that. And, I'm seeing a lot of crossovers into Legends of Tomorrow. And I want to ask our listeners out there, has anyone really enjoying Legends of Tomorrow? Should I watch it? I think we had 1-3C that was saying it was pretty good. Anyone else? Craig or Paul, are you guys watching Legends of Tomorrow?
No, I watched the first episode and it lost me.
Me too. But it's got all these cool crossovers coming up, and I kind of want to watch it, but I'm like, do I really want to get into it? Because, like, there's an episode now that's going to have Flash, Supergirl, Arrow, everybody's going to be in it, and I'm like, I kind of want to watch that.
I would list it as I watched about the first half of the first season.
Yeah.
Just because, I've got that gamer bug of being a completist.
Right.
But it still didn't hold me just because it's okay, but it's not stellar, and there's a lot of other stuff out there competing for its time.
That's right. There's a lot of good shows out there. All right, that's fair. That's what I thought. So I'll try to avoid it then. Also, I am enjoying though the Grand Tour. Are you guys familiar with this show?
No.
Okay. So there's this. If you're into automotive shows, so I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but of course, my wife being an automotive journalist, we are. Sort of the big daddy of all automotive shows is a show called Top Gear out of the UK. Mm-hmm. Anyway, for those following the drama of Top Gear, Jeremy Clarkson, the main host of Top Gear, slugged a guy who worked on the show, requiring the BBC to fire him. So they did. The other two hosts said, well, you're going to fire him. We're out of here too because we like Jeremy. So they left. So basically Top Gear fell apart because the hosts had to be fired because one of them punched somebody. So Amazon said, hey, you want to make the same show but call it Grand Tour? And they said, sure. And so the season is now airing. It is just the same as Top Gear was, except on Amazon now, and it's called Grand Tour now. I'm still really loving it. The guys are hilarious to watch, and it's about really cool supercars. So if you're a geek about supercars, Grand Tour is worth watching. I really enjoy it. It's kind of like Monty Python meets automotive reviews is kind of where I'd put it.
The question is, did they bring the Stig along with them?
No, it's interesting because the Stig, of course, is Top Gear has rights to the Stig. So they didn't bring the rights to the show. They just recreated the show under a new name. So they don't have a Stig. However, they do have a crazy American race driver who drives for them. So the Grand Tour, they travel the world now, right? So they have this tent. And every episode, the tent is in a different country. So it was in America once, then it was in Africa. They returned to England in episode 3. We'll see where they are in episode 4. They bounce around. But for some reason, in every episode, an American, or good old boy American race driver, NASCAR race driver, which they tease all the time because they pretend they don't know what NASCAR is. And this guy drives the cars for him with a awesome Southern accent, complaining about these crazy British guys who make him drive. So it's a different shtick, but it's the same idea as the Stig. You got a race driver so the same guy drives all the cars to get the right lap times, that kind of thing. But it's not as cool as the Stig. They need an excuse to bring back some other flavor of Stig, but I guess that'd be too blatant, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, Craig, I finally got back to Sibylla Burns, the Expanse book.
Yes,
and I am really enjoying it. I am now 15 hours through a 21-hour book, and I'm still loving it. So I'm really
nice. Okay, good.
Enjoying it. I think pretty much anything with Holden and the crew, and at this point, I'm in. It doesn't really matter what's happening. So, really enjoying that. And if you want to listen to those, check out Audible. Go to the D6generation.com, click the Audible link.
And please do go through the D6G.
You would get a free book from Audible just for trying it out.
Yep. Indeed.
And also, I'm playing. Here's a great video game for you, Paul. If you like video games that are kind of like space exploration and space combat, but not super duper intense or complicated, not like a first person cockpit situation, Rebel Galaxy, Paul, is fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, I really like Rebel Galaxy. It's kind of like the universe is sort of like the Old West meets space. It's got a little Firefly twang to the music and settings. A lot of cowboy hats and stuff, but
okay, you're singing my song.
But what also, and I put the Firefly soundtrack on in the background. But what's cool about it is you're commanding sort of more of a capital ship, and instead of having to, when you battle and stuff, it's in a 2D plane, so you're not really having to worry about 3 dimensions. It does a good job of emulating it, but think Battlefleet Gothic or other miniature games where you don't really have 3D. And then you're really controlling the broadsides and doing broad maneuvers, but there's turrets on your ship that are always spinning around, shooting down fighters and shooting at the other guys. And it's more of a strategic and high-level tactical maneuvering game, and less of a, oh my god, I got to pivot left and change my deflector shields kind of thing. And it's got an RPG element. You level up, you buy new ships, you can trade, you can attack other vessels, you can decide to be a pirate. There's different factions. You can ally with the pirates, you can ally with the militia. You can choose what you want to do. There's an overall story arc with a bunch of side missions, very sandbox feeling. Great game, and I think it's like $20 on Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox, so check it out.
Nice.
I'm really enjoying it. And I like the look. It's just got a nice look to it. So that's that. And I think, is that achievements, Craig?
That is achievements, Russ.
In a world where board gaming was king, in a time when Kickstarter ruled the web, when every day brought more and more games, now, more than ever, two men, and a revolving third chair, and a girl, a total fangirl, brought a shining light into the darkness so that all mankind would know what to buy. They are the D6 generation.
Now it's time to talk about our friends at BattleFoam.com. You know, one of my favorite things about BattleFoam is the thought they put into not only their foam, which is amazing quality, virtually indestructible, a laser cut to precision. Of course, you can custom design your own trays over there on their tray creator. But also, if you're in a hurry, you don't have time for all that, they've got tons of pre-created trays for just about every miniature game you can imagine. But what I also love is their licensed bags. So their bags are fantastic. They have great stitching on the outside of them, super durable, great way to keep your models protected, of course. But then if you get a licensed bag for one of your favorite miniatures games, the logo is right there on the side, also stitched on there, looks beautiful. But the licensure of the bags goes beyond just the appearance, right? So take the latest and greatest bag I've just added to my collection, the BattleFoam Guild Ball bag. It was an essential edition now that I am becoming, let's just say, mildly addicted to Guild Ball. One of the great things about these bags is not only do they have the awesome Guild Ball logo on there, and you're ready to go rock, and not only does it come with great foam loadout, but additionally, there's extra little features on the bags that are designed specifically for the game in question. So, for example, on the Guild Ball bag, if you opened up one of the outside doors there, instead of room for more miniatures, there are two elastics that hold a bunch of little, basically mini tackle boxes. And these tackle boxes have plenty of space for all the crazy tokens that you need to keep them all sorted for Guild Ball. And then, of course, there's also two little slots for dry erase pencils, so you can stick them in there for managing your cards. So the bag is the absolute perfect way to carry around all of your Guild Ball needs in one easy-to-use space. And all of their bags are like this. So if you want to find the ultimate bag for your ultimate game, look no further than BattleFoam.com.
And now, in an attempt to bring a small amount of dignity and decorum to this otherwise base form of entertainment, and I use the term loosely, I am proud to present... Oh, get on with it. It's time for App of the Ep. Seriously, Wakeland, I used to have my own segment, and now I'm relegating to announcing this pap. Hey, you're lucky we still use you. Hey, it's time for another App of the Ep. This time around, I got a quick and dirty one for you. A really hot tip for this one. When I play all my miniature games, there are quite a few of them that are really enhanced with a chess clock. I think this because sometimes you have that analysis paralysis situation where you have a fantastic game, but your opponent just seems to take a long time, or quite frankly, it just doesn't feel realistic when each of you can take 20 or 30 minutes to do a move, and you kind of want the game to have a little more action and excitement in your life. And that's where a chess clock comes in really, really handy. A couple games I really enjoy doing this in. War Machine becomes really interesting with a chess clock. And it's a game system that's really designed well for it. The key to making a chess clock work is you have to have a kind of game with a limited player interaction in the opponent's turn, right? So one of the challenges is with most chess clock apps or with real chess clocks, you can, of course, tap the chess clock when your move is over, and then your opponent starts to move. Now, in a game with a lot of player interaction, you can of course tap both sides of it, but it gets kind of complicated, especially those parts where you have to kind of wait each other out. So you really want a game where when it's your opponent's turn, they're doing all their stuff, and you have very little things to do besides just watch and go, oh dear, maybe make a saving throw or two. And similarly, when it's your turn, similar things sorts of happen. A couple games that this works really, really well, and in fact, the games have been since designed and refined for this. So War Machine originally, people started really enjoying playing with chess clocks and started doing it, and over Mark II and Mark III, they really refined the game and removed a lot of the elements that could happen in your opponent's turn, and now the game really shines with a chess clock. Another game that is fantastic and is really actually designed from the ground up for a chess clock is Guild Ball. And I really strongly recommend playing Guild Ball with a chess clock because it is fantastic. So I wanted to share with you for this app of the app, my personal favorite chess clock app. And that is actually an app, appropriately enough, called Chess Clock. And what I really like about this one is a couple things. First of all, it has an extremely simple user interface. So there's two large square buttons on either side of your phone. Also works well on a tablet or a phone. And these things work good on any size phone, but the nice thing is the bigger the phone, actually in this particular case, the better, because you want to lay your phone sort of flat on the side of the table. Everybody should be able to see it, and those giant buttons should be easy to tap. And it's actually easier to tap these big buttons on your phone than it is on a real chess clock, believe it or not. So what's cool about this one is there's a bunch of different ways you can have this work. So most gamers prefer to play chess clocks with just an overall countdown time. So when Craig and I, for example, play timed Guild Ball, as we call it, we'll put 45 minutes for each player, or 30 minutes or whatever for each player on the overall clock. And then when I tap my side, my 30 minutes starts to counting down. When I'm done, I tap my side. Then Craig's side starts counting down, and it'll come off his 35 minutes. So overall, we have an entire 35 minutes each, which makes for a hour and 10-minute game total before we're done. And that is it. Now, there are different rules in games what to do when your time runs out. So in Guild Ball, there actually are some very clear rules what happens. You can either play that just the other person who ran out of time loses. But in Guild Ball, actually what happens is there's actually tournament rules for this. You set the chess clock down to 1 minute turns each, and the first score wins. But if no one scores in a certain amount of time, then it's a draw or something like that. So it's really pretty cool. But in any case, what you also want is chess clocks that can be set for different situations. So sometimes you want to have it so that each player has a 5-minute turn, but there's no overall game time. And if they run out of time, then they lose. So you literally have strict time limits. You can do it that way as well. So this particular app, just again, the Chess Clock, does all that, and it's free for iOS. So check it out. This one, or there's many, many other choices out there as well. But I would highly recommend going ahead and downloading a Chess Clock for your phone and trying it out with one of your favorite games today, because I think you'll find it adds a whole new dimension. Thank you for listening to another scintillating edition of App of the App, a segment in which, hey, less of that, more just getting on with the show. Seriously, Wakeland, you are like school in summer. No class. Hey, welcome back. Well, since we have Paul on the show here, Craig.
Yes, we do.
Paul, we are so excited. You invited us out to be a part of Captain Con last year. The first year that Captain Con appeared in, back in its, one of the sort of the original locations for the New England Privateers, Craig. Look, Craig, yes. I'm not going to have your oppressive attitude adjusting the facts. The facts are that the New England Privateers established Privateer Press, sort of formatted gaming here in New England at TempleCon. And now TempleCon has departed from that scene, moving on to other matters. And so now Captain Con has, like a phoenix from the flames, brought War Machine back in all its glory.
The War Machine angle.
Yes, exactly right. Does that sound correct, Paul?
Yeah, that's relatively correct. Okay. I mean, it's I want my War Machine back in February, but it's mostly about we all need our gaming fix in February.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So you're filling a demand, Paul. A demand which is we want a game in February.
I get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's community service.
So
exactly.
So I thought it'd be kind of fun since Paul's here, and one of the brains behind the con, if you will, right? I mean, I know it's many hands make this happen.
One of the captains behind Captain Con, if you will.
Right. So this is now, Paul, this is going to be the third year for Captain Con, correct?
Yeah, actually, it's our 4th convention in 3 years.
Oh, so I guess I'm technically correct.
Isn't that fun?
Wow.
We're going to fire half of our research staff just for that one question.
Right. So how does that work? Explain that to me.
Okay, so we got started. Well, let's all step into the Wayback Machine and go all the way back.
Oh, geez.
All right.
Hey, I like the Wayback Machine.
There you go.
So we had a long-running tradition of this thing called the New England Team Tournament for War Machine and Hordes.
Oh, yes.
And
Yes, indeed.
it had started as a little, handful of local game stores, and everybody had a team, and the next store that won, they hosted the next one, and it kept growing and growing, and eventually we ran out of game stores that were big enough to hold it because we just outgrew all of them. Mm-hmm. Famously, we ended up with one convention that overflowed the game store into the parking lot of the game store.
I remember that.
I remember that one too.
Yes, you were there.
We were
Yes,
there.
I was.
That was when I got beaten by a 13-year-old. I remember it well.
That's when that guy said all those foul things to me while he played with his pirates.
Oh, yes, I do remember those pirates.
Yes.
I don't remember the foul things. But
Oh, well.
yeah, well.
I envy your lack of memory. But anyway, so that was amazing. They had to put up tents in the parking lot. I remember that.
Yes. So we got pretty big at that point. And so we said, okay, we need a hotel conference room, like a small ballroom, large conference room. So we did that for a year.
Yep.
And then we needed a bigger part of a ballroom, and we had the infamous, well, we've got a third of the ballroom, and the wedding has the other 2/3 on the other side of the air wall, and drunken wedding guests visiting the New England Team Tournament. Mm-hmm. And about that point, we realized, well, in order to contain this thing, we might as well just jump in with 2 feet. So in 2014, we had the first Captain Con. That was in the middle of the summer down in Taunton, Massachusetts, and we had couple of hundred gamers show up for War Machine and Hordes, and a handful of other events that were going on, Malifaux, Infinity, a few things like that, and it went so well, and we thanks to launching it off through Kickstarter, we were sure that we covered all of our costs. So, right. None of us had to explain to our wives why the credit card bill was so large for a hotel.
Oh, that's right. You Kickstarted that. I totally
remember
forgot that.
Yes, I remember it.
So that was that took a little bit of the edge off, and we came out of that with just enough to put the deposit for the next year, and thus we rolled into 2015 at the same Taunton hotel in the middle of the summer. We grew by about 45-50% over the previous year. Mm-hmm. So clearly people wanted to game with us, and we were doing something right.
Oh, yeah.
And shortly after that, we were getting ready to plan for 2016 when we found out that TempleCon was moving their convention dates from the winter into the summer. Right. And, the guys and I, we also run events at TempleCon, so we didn't really want to do 2 conventions back to back, competing with one another and stressing us all out.
You mean Gen Con, right? So they moved TempleCon right next to Gen Con. So you guys are running things at Gen Con and TempleCon. That was too much, right?
Yeah. For us, it would have been do Captain Con, 2 weeks later do Gen Con, right. 2 weeks after that do TempleCon.
Right.
And that was kind of a non-starter. Right.
Yeah.
So we jumped at the opportunity and said, well, we're going to help everybody get their gaming fix in the winter months. And so we moved from July to first weekend of February in Warwick, Rhode Island, and that was this year, 2016.
Yes.
And I'm proud to say we had about 460 or so gamers attend, which is, a further increase in attendance. So we're growing year over year. Yeah. We packed the space, and again, we came out the other end of that with got enough to put down the deposit for the next year, and we can use a few more of these ballrooms, and let's add a few more things on, and we keep rolling this ball, and we keep adding more stuff to it.
That's awesome. So, and we were there at 2016.
We were there.
It was. Yes. We talked about it before. It was a great turnout, and that venue's excellent for this. So tell me, Paul, how are you expanding over 2016? Because 2017 is the same location, same time, essentially, right? But you're going to even use more of the facility?
Exactly. Actually, so I guess first of all, let me give the basics, which is for those who don't know, our location is the Crown Plaza in Warwick, Rhode Island, and all of this is on the website, which is captaincon.com.
Right.
And we have last year we used their grand ballroom, and actually I'm trying to pull up my notes here on square footage because we essentially doubled our square footage during the between last year and this year, because we had the grand ballroom, and if folks are familiar with that from Captain Con's past or Temple Cons or other events there, that's a nice big space.
Right.
Yeah.
And that grand foyer out in front of it is even more big space.
Beautiful.
But during this past year, the Rotunda Ballroom, which is another couple thousand square feet, was just open and nobody was using it. And we hadn't actually booked that as our space, but there were some tables sitting in there. And gamers being as gamers are, well, we got to find some space to put down some more board games. And so people just started taking those tables. So our first order of business was, Dear Crown Plaza, we'd like the Rotunda, and we'd also like that Tiverton Ballroom, which is just down the hallway there. So we've added 2 new rooms.
Very nice.
So it's almost doubled our footprint, which is good because we were kind of busting at the seams last year.
Yeah, it was nice and packed.
Yes, and it's also going to, because we're going to be a little more spread out, it's going to give a little more space for, I know, the board game players and the role players would probably like to not be right on top of some of the miniatures players as far as the crescendo of noise that a gaming hall can be.
Right.
And so we've got that elbow room. We're always committed to making sure we've got lots of space between the tables and such, because that's always been my personal pet peeve of conventions is they pack the tables in real tight, and then you
can't move. Right.
I'm a gamer medium, also known as a 2XL t-shirt. So I'm working on that, but right now I want a nice wide aisle. So we try to keep a lot of elbow room for folks.
That's very nice.
Extra space is going to be good.
Plus, it keeps the heat reasonable, right? So it doesn't get too hot in those areas. When you really pack people in tight, it's tough.
So for people who are throwing together conventions, Paul, like listeners who might be thinking about it, was that one of the big growing pains that you guys had? Was the space where you had miniature gamers and board gamers, the various different types of games kind of on top of each other, and you want like one ideal situation was to kind of separate those out?
Well, it's always tricky to balance off we want people to mix and mingle, and Captain Con's all about sort of that cross-pollinating, and that there's a lot of folks that come that aren't just like, I'm here for one game and one game only all weekend, but want to try a little bit of everything. But it is the hardest part of running a convention, is that space is very expensive. And there's no way to really add on just a little bit more space. Right. You either have one ballroom or you have 2 big ballrooms, and that jump in cost can be a lot. So I think a lot of newer conventions will end up having what we did, which is you always have that 1 year of everything feels a little too tight, because you don't quite have the confidence that, can I fill all this space, until you've overfilled the space you have once.
Right.
And we had that in February of this year, and so we said, add more space, we can handle it.
Great. Well, I think it's definitely better to play it a little safe there and keep your money, you keep your budget intact and learn what you can do. So I think you guys played it right. You're expanding the space. Are you expanding the offerings as well? So what kind of, I know I made a big deal about War Machine, but of course, Captain Con's, about multiple games. What kind of games you going to add this year? Well, first of all, why don't you bring everybody up to speed on what the standard fare is, and then what are you adding this year?
Okay. Well, so I guess standard fare for us is, first of all, our focus is the social tabletop games. You know, we're interested in promoting those things that get people together face to face over a table having fun. So for us, that means focusing on miniatures, war games, tabletop role playing games, and board games, and the living card games, non-collectible card games. We don't have nearly the infrastructure we'd need to jump into the whole collectible card games like Magic and things like that. So, you know, if we can't do it right, we don't want to do it and do it badly. So we're staying away from that for now. But within that space, it's, I view it sort of like a mall. We've got a couple of big anchor games, and then we've got different offerings within that, fit the interests of the individual gamers, and a lot of that's driven by who wants to run stuff and where there's a demand in the community, and we actively are trying to grow it. So right now, sort of our big ones, obviously, War Machine and Hordes. We've got a lot of folks that come out for that. The New England team tournament this year will be 32 teams of 3, so 96 players in one massive event, which is pretty solid. But this February, the big breakout hit in the miniatures hall was Guild Ball.
Yes.
I personally know a couple of pundits who just demoed round the clock and still had lines of people that wanted to, show me this game, show me how it plays. And, because of that, we've added a few Guild Ball events to the schedule.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
What kind of Guild Ball? So as you may know, Paul, Craig and I just got back from SteamCon out there in Leeds, England, where Steam
great deal
games,
of Guild Ball was to be had.
They had their first
convention. Just a bit, I hear.
Yeah, and there was a lot of Guild Ball amongst other things, but of course, so season 3 is all kicked off. So what kind of Guild Ball events you guys going to be running there?
Starting off Friday morning at 11 o'clock, we have a kickoff tournament, and it's a so it's meant to run a little faster. So it's as the organizer describes it, it's a friendly tournament for up to 16 players, using the play till final whistle, and it's not over till it's over rules, and a 45-minute death clock on the games to keep things moving along.
Nice.
And then Friday evening, make sure my time's here, is 9 o'clock is the start for Fast and Furious, which let me see if I can get all the details right. So this is also 16 players. It's not over till it's over, quick and dirty, and playing on instinct, which are, again, I'm doing the shorthand terms for those sort of in the know in Guild Ball, but sorry, cool. I talk gamer, which is all shorthand, right?
That's all right.
And then on Saturday at 9 a.m., there's the Captain's Cup qualifier event, which is the large tournament that'll be midday right there in the center of the hall. And the top players from that will qualify for a champion tournament on Sunday morning. And if you still haven't had enough Guild Ball by the time you get to Saturday night, and who hasn't, Saturday night at 9 o'clock is the Brewers Invitational.
Oh, nice.
Which, the Brewers are hosting it, so you can fill in a few of the blanks there.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, that's fantastic. It sounds like Guild Ball's going to have a nice, strong presence there, which is great. Craig and I are huge fans of the game, and it's nice to see that there. And, of course, you guys are going to have all the War Machine stuff and Horde stuff you always do, which is pretty much you name it, right? So casual play, and as well as, of course, lots and lots of competitive play, including staying up all night. Is the all-night stuff still going on, Paul? Are you guys still crazy? Oh, yeah, of course.
Most definitely. So, we have midnight events running midnight Friday night into Saturday morning, and midnight Saturday night into Sunday morning, as well as, so we've got our sort of standard fare of steamroller events that lead up to qualifying for champions on Sunday, or if you want to play in something that's a little more on the casual side but still a tournament, and you're one of the old fellows like me, we have the senior tour on Saturday for those 40 and over.
I might be up for that this time, Paul. I might be senior enough now to join in.
There you go. It's or as I like to put it, it's for the players like me who sometimes forget things like, how's this format work again?
Right, exactly.
So we have that, and then on Sunday, an always fan favorite is the Who's the Boss tournament. Which is, yes, play a tournament and randomly figure out what caster is going to be running your army each round. And then I should also mention that, we're talking about all these tournaments because they're real easy to talk about because they're nice big marquee events. But it's important to note that we have 30 4-foot by 4-foot tables in one section of the hall that are just dedicated to casual play and will always be open for, you throw down whatever game you want to play on there. And, use our terrain, bring some of your own, whatever you want to do. It's open space for miniatures play. And the rule of thumb about Captain Con is if it's not being used for a tournament currently,
you can play on it.
Feel free. Have at it. Use this table.
And that's
play
one
games.
that's one of my favorite things about your guys' venues, because not only, a lot of conventions have, plain white tabletops to play random games on. You guys have a lot of those, first of all. So board gamers, you want a spot to sit down and play, there's plenty of that. But also what you guys have is actual tables set up with nice terrain on them, ready to go, that aren't part of, a tournament. And so you can walk over and actually just bring out your models and play a great miniature game right there on the spot, which is fantastic. Now, are you guys still running, I know the name of it keeps evolving, but sort of the casual play the casual play War Machine, which has the, you can earn points to get cool prizes and stuff? I think it was Iron Arena 1 year. Yeah.
Actually, Iron Arena is the official Privateer Press
version.
format.
Yep.
But being as we're part of the creative group that originated that way back in the way back in the early days. So we have our own spin on that at Captain Con. It's called the Captain's Log.
Oh, cool!
And it's casual play everything. So basically, the way it works is if anybody's ever been into a Chuck E. Cheese or going back to my childhood, the old style video game arcades where you would play games and you'd get tickets and you'd go up to the counter and turn those tickets into the guy behind the counter for, some cool prize
top
that really means a lot at the time.
Right.
Yeah. So we have that too. Basically, if you play in a tournament all the way through to the end and don't drop, you're going to get a stamp in your convention program from the tournament organizer.
Cool.
That's worth some points in the Captain's Log. If you play a casual game with your friends, you come over to the Captain's Log, and they enter the points in for everybody that played in the casual game.
Yeah.
If you take a demo of a game, they stamp your book, you get points.
That's awesome. So it doesn't matter what
shop
game
at
it
a vendor,
is.
you get points.
Well, that's awesome. So it doesn't matter what it is. I can play a game of Guild Ball with Craig, and then I can play some War Machine with you, and then someone can play at the D6G event, and we're all getting stamps that can lead to fun little things. So we all get. So we're all gaining points regardless of what we're doing, right? Win or lose.
Yeah. So I've had folks that have, they played in a Pathfinder role playing session, got their book stamped while they were waiting for the next session because they were like all about the role playing.
Right.
They did a quick pickup game of Love Letter.
Yep.
Got some stamps for that, and basically you come to the Captain's Log table at any time during the convention. And you convert those into all the cool prizes, which are basically everything that we can strong arm out of any vendor and sponsor we can get, or things that we just purchase ourselves because we can't get it donated, but we really want to have it in the prize pool.
Oh, very cool. So, Paul, we've talked about Guild Ball, we talked about War Machine, of course, Hordes. What other games can people look forward to having events at Captain Con?
Well, to sort of let me play Auctioneer a minute and just rattle off a few things that I'm looking at in the schedule in front of me. So we've got an Age of Sigmar tournament on Friday and another Age of Sigmar tournament on Saturday.
Very cool.
We've got a Relic Knights event Saturday night. We've got a couple of Infinity tournaments. We've got Malifaux running all weekend.
Sweet.
Saturday morning, we have a Dark Age March to Immortality tournament going on.
Ooh, very cool.
Let's see. We've got a a club-style event for the Fantasy Flight Star Wars games, X-Wing, Armada, and Imperial Assault.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a set of tables and drop in and play games, and they've got some set scenarios set up.
That's awesome.
So that's going to be
people,
kind of cool.
So people will be there that know the rules and have the games. Do you have to be experienced, or can you just drop in and play and learn the rules while you're there?
So for that one in particular, that's specifically set up for if you're an experienced player and just want to come for a challenge, drop in. We got you over here. If you're completely new to this and you just like, hey, I like TIE fighters and X-Wings,
right?
Come on over. We'll show you what to do. We've got a couple of guys that are running that are, definitely going to show that off. We've got a couple of Flames of War events going on. One on Friday and one on Sunday.
Very nice.
I think it's Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm looking at all my spreadsheets and such.
Yeah, right.
Wow, look at that. We're getting the info right fresh off the Excel.
Right.
Oh, most definitely. We're still populating our board game schedule, but sort of early on, we've got early on the schedule, we've got some Firefly board game sessions. We've got 2 of those going on. A Ninja All-Stars session, a 2-part event for Arcadia Quest, and a Crossmaster Arena tournament.
Oh, very cool. Nice.
And we've got demos going on too all weekend as well. So there's, actually we've got a really motivated guy from Steve Jackson Games who pretty much has the entire library of Steve Jackson games that he's demoing.
Cool.
And one I'm really looking forward to checking out is Drop Fleet Commander.
Oh, yes.
Is that going to be there?
So on actually Saturday during the day from 10 till 5, there's some guys in our demo zone that are going to be running demos of that. I got a little bit into Drop Zone Commander and then got real busy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I hear the Fleet game is even better.
Yes, I've heard good things about the Fleet game too. So, also one of the things I thought was cool about Captain Con in the past, and I was wondering if you guys are still doing it, Paul, is you have a dedicated sort of painting modeling area. So if you buy those new figures, or maybe you're just got some time between games, you want to paint something, there's a spot to do that. Is that still a part of the event?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. So, that's the Games and Gears hobby zone. And it's just as you said, it's
right.
Our friends at Games and Gears support us by basically giving us sets of brushes and hobby supplies. And Privateer Press has donated a bunch of sets of paints for us.
Cool.
And so, you can drop in and paint some models, hang out and chat with friends while you paint, And speaking of painting, we have a painting competition.
Oh, nice.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we
Nice.
have. It's loosely based on the Crystal Brush contest rules. So if folks are familiar with Cool Mini or not, we won't be doing the online voting component of it, but the rest of it's the same structure.
Oh, cool.
Oh.
And of course, we have all the rules for that, as well as the event schedule I've just been rattling off is all on the website because. We're getting close to go time, so and get all that out there.
Yeah,
and hopefully in the next, probably by the time this episode hits air, I'm hoping to have a nice big update for all the RPG sessions that'll be going on.
Oh, great! So there's RPGs as well. You guys have quite the event schedule. Then it's pretty much something for everyone, Paul. Seems like
yeah,
me. That's fantastic. So what do you? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just asking, what are you what's one of the newer things that you're most excited about? Something that you're really excited to be offering in 2017 that's new to the convention?
Wow. It's hard to pick just one. I guess
don't limit yourself to one.
I'm not gonna limit myself to one. I'm gonna say that I'm really excited to see Age of Sigmar on our schedule, just because I know there were some strong feelings both for and against that when it first launched, and there's a community building around it. I'm kind of interested to see how that goes and to see that go off real well, and I'm really excited about growing our board game and our role playing components because we've got lots of miniatures gamers and lots of stuff for the miniatures gamers. But I know that a lot of folks are kind of like my local gaming crew, where we show up at the game store on a Saturday and we'll play 1 or 2 games of War Machine or a couple of games of Guild Ball, and then go grab a slice of pizza and sit down and play a board game that somebody's brought. And so I'm hoping to see that on a really big scale, because that's what last year was. I'm going to keep growing it bigger.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
That sounds fantastic.
And of course, I'm really looking forward to the D6G offerings.
Oh, we
because you guys are going to be there, right?
We are, for sure. We always have a
Funny
great
you should
time.
mention that.
Yeah, we always have a fantastic time. Last year we ran Beyond the Gates of Antares battle, and we brought everything everyone needs. And this is whenever we run one of our events, you just need to show up. So we'll have a bunch of painted models there. We'll have some amazing terrain that Craig puts together, and then we work out some, whatever game system we're showing. We kind of tweak the rules slightly to allow for 6-on-6, 7-on-7, 8-on-8, 10-on-10 gameplay, with everybody taking a squad or something and just playing out a giant mega battle for a couple hours, and always good fun. A great way to kind of get the feel of a system, and as well as kind of really get the feeling of what the game can look like if you put a little time into your terrain and your models as well. So we'll generally pick. Go ahead,
Greg. I have to jump in and just say that terrain is amazing. My wife had a blast taking a lot of photographs of your table from this past year. So.
Yeah, that was
set high.
Yeah, that's true. That was my first chance to showcase my my Antennasetti's workshop terrain from their Kickstarter. So I don't know, it'll be tough, but we will be endeavoring to at least meet, if not beat, that this year. So
yes.
That will be our goal.
We have some good ideas.
That's sort of like the baseline of what we like to provide.
Yep.
Nice.
We're in the planning stage right now, and if you listen to the last Lost chapter, you've actually heard. You got a little sneak preview of what we're going to be doing.
Of the three of us trying to come up with a plan.
Yes, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to we'll announce it in an episode or so here, so you have plenty of time to know what it is and can sign up for the event. But yeah, we are so pumped for Captain Con. I love it because the time of year is perfect. It's during the lull, in the summer and fall. There's so many conventions going on. It's kind of like you really got to
and other
choose.
things
and other things too. Back to school and everything else happening. What I like about February is things are, the winter's well underway.
The doldrums.
Yeah, holidays are over. You're kind of waiting for spring, and all of a sudden Captain Con's here, and you have a nice little weekend getaway and have a great time. And I love the Captain's Log concept, because I always liked, as you guys built out the Iron Arena thing and sort of Privateer Press adopted it because it's brilliant. What I like about this now is it doesn't matter which game I play. I get the feeling of participating, getting points, and kind of getting a little record of what I've done over the weekend, and the little prizes. It's just a great way to do it. And I'm a very eclectic gamer, so, I'm looking forward to playing a little War Machine down there, playing a little Guild Ball, of course, doing the event we're going to run, playing some board games. It's kind of nice to be able to have all of that sort of come together and get me a few points in here. So I really like that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why we've made it sort of the centerpiece of the convention, is because we didn't want to have, because our focus is on the tabletop games, it's very easy to just focus on the competitive. But we've seen at every other convention we've been at that the casual players or the gamers that like to jump around from system to system vastly outnumber the guys that are there to challenge themselves in the hardcore tournaments, which, that's, they like that, and we're always going to offer that. But we wanted to make sure that there was a cool reward for the folks that are just like, hey, I'm coming here to have fun and try out a bunch of new stuff. And so come down in February, February 3rd through 5th, play all weekend with us. Heck, maybe I'll even get a chance to play one of these years. And, you'll win prizes just for hanging out and playing.
That's true.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks for all the details, Paul. Now, Paul, if people want to learn more about Captain Con, where should they go?
So we're all over the place with our expanding multimedia empire, but the best place to go is our website, which is captaincon.com. Or you can check us out on Facebook. It's Captain Con on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter at Any Privateers.
Nice.
Not any privateers, choose one of many.
No.
NE Privateers.
New England Privateers, yeah.
Yes, it's short for New England Privateers. It's the, sometimes we think of ourselves as the brain trust, and other times we're just sort of brain damaged. But we post all of our updates and such there. We've got actually I got a lot of pictures up on the Facebook of promotional items and stuff that are coming in off our printers currently, and we'll be doing a bunch of updates on our vendors because I shouldn't forget our vendors. We've got a lot of the list is on our website, but I'll tease everyone with we have the War Store,
Mm-hmm.
we have Muson Minis, we have Broken Egg Games, we've got I believe Tectonic Crafts is going to be joining us. Wormwood Gaming, love their wood stuff,
fancy stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh, and I shouldn't forget special shout out to Ironmark Games. You guys might like this. They're coming up to vend, but the other thing that they're coming up to do is on Sunday they will be running this mega gaming event called The World Turned Upside Down. It's for up to 40 people can play, and it's kind of a mix between a tabletop miniatures game and diplomacy. As you split into two factions, one faction is controlling the continental forces that are rebelling, and the other faction is controlling the Brits, and we're fighting the American Revolution.
Nice.
Oh,
so
little historical gaming there.
Little historical gaming, and kind of a unique new thing that we're putting on the schedule because. They'll also have a vending presence as well, so you can kind of check out some of the other stuff that they have because they do these mega games all over the place. And almost got through this little segment without mentioning them, and that would be a crime.
Oh,
It would be a crime.
That's pretty cool.
And Games and Gears is going to be there as well, right? They've been there, and are they sponsoring? Or they can be there this year?
Yeah. They're a key sponsor of ours. So. Obviously, several of the vendors I just mentioned will be selling their stuff. Yep. We'll also at the convention's registration booth have some of the Games and Gears products on sale as well, because that's one of the ways that they help sponsor the convention. Is we have a little we vend their stuff for them agreement.
Yeah,
they help support the cost of keeping the doors open and such. But yeah, they're definitely a major sponsor, and you can look for them sort of all over the place.
Yeah. And they are, of course, are the manufacturer of the only official D6G brush set.
That's
for the
right.
out there.
That's true.
It's exactly true.
And I expect that. I expect that you'll get Mr. Games and Gears himself cornered into playing a game with you guys that weekend.
So. I hope so.
I don't know who corners whom, but I'm sure there'll be some cornering involved.
Last year, at Captain Con was when we got to see Dark Deeds for the first time. Way ahead.
That's true. Yep.
Way ahead. We were under NDA and everything. It was pretty cool. So all kinds of crazy backroom things happen at Captain Con. It's kind of like the jump start of the con season. Sort of 4 months ahead of con season, which is pretty awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, I almost forgot about that. Yeah, we had the little preview of Dark Deeds, and I got to play half a game of Blood Rage with y'all before I got pulled away to judge the painting contest.
That's right.
Oh well,
good times.
But
a convention organizer's job is never done.
The fact that you had even a moment to yourself is amazing.
Yes. Well, I'm looking. My goal for this year will be a full game with y'all.
Excellent. That'd be fantastic, Paul. I hope so. Well, Paul, thank you for the update on Captain Con. I'm really excited. Craig and I can't wait here. Just
always super excited.
Yeah. Look, not even 2 full months away yet. Getting close, Paul. You guys feeling like you got everything all together, ready to go?
Yeah, we're pretty all together. Actually, as soon as Monday hits and I send my badge order off to the printers, that's when we're in the glide path at that point. Because everything will be ordered and waiting for it all to arrive, and then it's just packing logistics.
Paul, does it get easier? This being your fourth one now is at least a large chunk of the administrative stuff sort of autopilot, or is it every year it's always different enough that it's nerve-wracking?
There's some things that get easier because it's less about the first years it was finding surprises of, oh wait, I didn't even think about that. And now it's more, I've thought about that, and I've been thinking about that for months and months and months, and it's still managed to do something different on me. You know, it's, you know, and it can be the logistical stuff of just like, you know, okay, I've been using this vendor all along, and then suddenly that vendor's no longer available. So, you know, for like T-shirt printing or something like that, you know, okay, time to scramble and find somebody new to do our T-shirts for us. Or, you know, just, you know, weird little inconsistencies that come up. I mean, there's always something, but it does get a little easier once you get out of the woods of, oh, wait, I don't have to worry so much about how the contract with the hotel is worded because I know what I'm looking at now.
That's true. That's true.
There you go.
Excellent. Well, good.
Well,
we
Paul,
can't wait.
We cannot wait. That's fantastic. So thank you, Paul, for the update on Captain Con. I really appreciate it. We are super excited about it. We're going to take a quick break here, hear from Total Fangirl, and then we'll be back with a game review in a little bit.
No! This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, total fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakeland and check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. And our shout out is to all of our wonderful supporters over at Patreon. Head to patreon.com/the D6 Generation, and you too can support the show. Thank you very much for your support. So we're getting really close to Christmas for those of you who celebrate. We do. And I'm finding one of my favorite things about the Christmas season has nothing to do with traditional Christmas stuff. 2 different things have happened. And I'm like, gosh, this is one of my favorite parts of the holidays now. So we got a card in the mail for one of the games that Russ plays that was like a special holiday card, you know, like to add to your deck that gave you extra powers and a gift. It was really kind of cool. And I thought, that's kind of fun. They sent something out for the season along with their little Christmas card to say, Merry Christmas, everybody, which was cool. But we have a couple of different games that we play with the kids or that I play with the kids. And they're not fancy games, but they've Christmas-ified themselves. One of them is Word Chums, which is like super popular and everybody I think is pretty familiar with it. It's like Scrabble, but it's got these cute little characters and you can dress them up, and it's a fun game to play with my kids, and I'm making them like learn how to spell words and stuff. So it's moderately educational because sometimes there's words that they put in there as we play this game back and forth, like where they're on the school bus or killing time or whatever, and there's words they don't even know are words, and then the game says that they work and they end up looking them up and saying, what the heck does that word mean? Occasionally I don't know the words they're playing or words, and I end up looking them up and learning a word. So Word Chums has done all this Christmas stuff. There's like snowflakes falling and Rudolph and the sleigh are flying across the top of the screen, and there's like little garland trims and lights, and the North Pole is there. So it's kind of fun. And there's another game that we started playing. Again, these are like little freebie games. You don't even need to pay for these, but they still did Christmas releases, and for the most part, everything in the release is free. There's stuff you can pay for, just like always in any of these games, but you get it all Christmas-ified for nothing. The other game, I'm going to say it wrong, Abyssrium. It's like Abyss and then R-I-U-M, and it's this game where it's like a little tapper game, and it has this little coral reef and you're trying to build it. But I found out today, they Christmased it. So now my reef, he wears a hat and has a candy cane in one hand and a present in the other. And normally you have these little things, it's called vitality. And the fish occasionally release extra vitality. And if you tap it, when it has a little heart that represents this over their heads, you get however much vitality you have depending on how much you've leveled up your little reef, your little piece of coral. Well, now it's not a little heart anymore. It's a little candy cane. And the candy canes are special. You don't normally get candy canes. Now there's a whole event section in the little game, and in the event section, there's new fish that you get by collecting candy canes, which is really kind of fun. I know it's really goofy, and it's nothing fancy, and it's a little thing, but it's making this twice as fun. So now my daughter, the youngest, Kit, she's so into these games. We always play when she's on her way to school, like waiting for the bus, and sometimes when she's on her way home and she's bored on the bus home. We're trying to collect all these Christmas things, like there's a snowflake angelfish, and there's a snowflake sea slug. I know he sounds gross, but he's really cute. And there's a Christmas football fish. I don't know if a football fish is a real thing. Maybe someone who's particularly savvy in the fish world would know. But this particular fish is now stuck into a stocking, and he's adorable. There's even Christmas dolphins, and so it's really fun. And I realize something these games, these little freebie games, can get kind of boring sometimes and not real exciting. What a cute way to keep people playing. It released a holiday version. It doesn't cost me anything. It's just download the update. Poof, you have holidays. And I've been told that this game also does holiday stuff for different holidays like Easter and what have you. But I thought it was kind of neat that these games would do that, and there's no charge to do it. And I want to say that girls are playing Overwatch or something. I think it's Overwatch. And even that has a holiday download that's available today that's not particularly themed, but it's still new content for them to play. So here's a big thumbs up to all the manufacturers that decide to do something for different holidays, especially when they make it a freebie so that anyone can play. And if you play any of those fun little apps and games on your phone, make sure you update them, because you never know what kind of holiday surprises are just waiting for you to do the update.
You'll know what that sound means. That sound means it's time for Vic the Viking. And of course, Vic the Viking is the mascot for the ultimate place to go on the internet to get all of your miniature gaming stuff, your board game stuff, your RPG stuff. And that, of course, is thewarstore.com. Now, at the War Store here, it is Christmas time. We are deep in the holiday season. If you've got a gamer in your life, or you just want to put some stuff on your holiday list, the War Store is the place to go for all that. They got everything you need. Very quick, very easy to find it. All the latest hotness for all the easy to find games, but more importantly, sometimes those hard to find miniature games, the ones that aren't in your friendly local gaming store. Those are the places where the War Store really, really shines. And if let's say, ran out of time this holiday season, you didn't quite get all your shopping done, you didn't get all the ordering done, no problem. Head over to thewarstore.com and get a gift certificate for the gamer in your life. They're going to find exactly what they need, and they're not going to be disappointed either in the products they can choose from, or the service they're going to get, or the prices they pay. Somehow, Neil and the friends over there at the War Store managed to put it all together with fantastic selection, fantastic prices, and fantastic service. So if you want to make sure the game in your life gets the best possible gifts, the place to go is thewarstore.com.
You're listening to the Dice Tower Network at Dicetowernetwork.com. More fun than Merchant of Venus. Wait, what?
Who writes these?
Hey, welcome back, and I have a game that I've been dying to review on the show. I got this. It was actually launched at Gen Con. I did not pick it up at Gen Con because I pre-ordered it, and I waited, and it finally came out, and a lot of stuff going on, and I waited, and finally got to the table, played 4 or 5, 6 games of it, and now I'm like, oh man, Craig, we got to get this on the show. And then Craig sat down with me, and we played it, and I think we had a great time, so I want to talk to you all about it. And it, of course, is the new hotness from our friends at Gale Force 9, Star Trek Ascendancy.
Yeah, those guys and their IP games, really.
Yes. So Gale Force 9, as many of you know, they came onto the scene. Of course, Gale Force 9 has been around forever from the miniature gamer point of view. I mean, they've been making cool miniature bits and bling for us for a long time.
We were there right at the beginning when they first started getting little things in the basement of Games Day.
Yeah.
And the plastic card that they sold.
Oh, yeah, when they first started. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, not only do they have license deals with, Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons and all kinds of crazy stuff, but they managed to get some pretty cool licenses and start cranking out board games, the first of which was Spartacus. Then they did Firefly. Then they did Anarchy, I think it was, Brotherhood Anarchy, whatever it is. And then, I don't know that one very well. And then they did a bunch of different ones.
Oh, they did Homeland, which was great.
Yep, which was great. And now the latest one they came out with this year.
Oh, they did that wrestling game?
Yep. This year they came out with Star Trek Ascendancy. And what I think is really fantastic about this is it is a 4X, right? So it's expand, explore, exterminate, exploit, right? A game. Mm-hmm. But it's set in the Star Trek universe. And what's also interesting is a lot of those 4X games, space exploration games like Eclipse and Twilight Imperium, take a very long time. This one is a little faster. It can be a long time, but it's got a lot of mechanics in it that keep it at a much faster speed, and it's easier to pick up than those games. I think it's not as intimidating, if you will. So let's talk about that a little bit. One of its downsides, right out of the box, is that it is a 3-player game.
Now, this could be a positive or a negative. It is a no more, no less than 3-player game if you're starting with just the box.
It's strange.
And so 3 is a tricky number. What's cool about it is there aren't many games like this that 3 players is a good balance.
Sorry.
So a lot of times 3-player games don't work well for this. You want to have 4 or 2 or some kind of even number. But this works great with 3 players. But you have to have 3, which is sort of interesting. If you got 4, you're out of luck. However, there are expansions coming that introduce new factions and also allow you to increase the player count. So in not too much longer from now, probably about a month from now, you will be able to play with 4 or 5 players in addition to the minimum of 3. The MSRP is $99. And we'll talk about what comes in the box, and you can help us decide if that's worth it or not. And of course, the shtick here is it is a 4X game set in the Star Trek universe. Craig, would you be so kind as to read to us here this paragraph that highlights and explains how awesome this
is? Boldly go where no one has gone before. In Star Trek Ascendancy, you control the greatest civilizations of the galaxy, striking out from your home worlds to expand your influence and grow your civilization. Will you journey for peace and exploration, or will you travel the path of conquest and exploitation? Command starships, establish space lanes, construct star bases, and bring other systems under your banner. With more than 200 plastic miniatures and 30 star systems representing some of the Star Trek galaxy's most notable planets and locations, Star Trek Ascendancy puts the fate of the galaxy in your hands. You want me to do the second half too?
No, that's good. That's plenty. So basically, yes.
The great unknown. No, just
So there you have it. That is the back of the box, if you will. So Paul, does that entice you in any way?
That does entice me.
Now, Paul, are you a Star Trek fan, sir?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. So this is right in your wheelhouse. Now, are you familiar with 4X sort of space exploration games?
Not as well as I should be. So I'm gonna play 1,000 questions for you as we go along here. Excellent. Because, seen, read about, but not had a chance to play as many as I'd like.
All right, excellent. Well, great. Well, this will be fantastic then. So you keep us honest here as we go through this. So first of all, we have to kind of decide what's in the box. Now, Craig, what kind of sound do you get when you open a game like Star Trek Ascendancy?
If it sounds exactly like that, I'm buying it right now.
Exactly right.
I suggest you get on Amazon.
So here's what you get in the box. You get 3 of the iconic races from Star Trek. You get the Federation, the Romulans, and the Klingon Empire. You get a cool control panel for each one. And this is already, Paul, if you're a Trekkie like myself, you're already getting sucked in because the control panels for each faction are all blinged out with, so think of these like player mats, but they're thick cardstock player mats, and they're all shaped slightly differently with all the iconography of the different factions. And they have little plastic sliders that go in. So think in the original series, the transporter things that Scotty would always slide into, those little slider things. Imagine those locked into your player mat, and the height of those sliders indicates the power of your weapons and your shields. And each faction has this, but they're all oriented differently. Some of them curve and are more swoopy like the Romulan ones. The Klingons all look warlike with the Klingon glyphs and hieroglyphs on it. And then, of course, the Federation looks like the sort of Federation touch panels from Next Generation. Now, it's definitely set. All the ships in the core game are Next Generation era. While there are some cards and events and images of Captain Kirk and some of the original stuff, the plastics are definitely all Next Gen sort of sculpts. So the Romulans all look like the Next Gen Romulan warbirds. The Klingons all look like Next Gen Klingons. And, of course, the Federation ships are all like Galaxy-class starships. Right?
And what's the quality of the sculpts like?
They're pretty good. Craig, you want to describe the plastics?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's board game quality, I would say, but it's good. I mean, they're nice, they're crisp, there's no fiddly bits to warp or bend, so you're not worried about like bendy swords or things like that. But I would say they're very good board game quality pieces,
and you're getting a lot of them. So there's 30 Galaxy class starships for the Federation, and they're, as Craig mentioned, they're definitely board game quality, but at the same time, you can see the little etching on the saucer section of the little lines, and you can see
absolutely.
the detail on the nacelles. And so there's enough there to really give you some good meat. You could dry brush them real quick and really add a pop to them, but you don't even need to. They don't feel like they need it. So each race is going to get 30 of these basic plastic ships, and then they're also going to get 3 ships that are slightly larger scale of the same sculpts, along with a little base that they stand on with numbers on them, and these represent fleets. More about those in a second. You're also going to get a bunch of a deck of exploration cards, which will be revealed as you explore the galaxy to kind of add random events. You're going to get 30 system discs. So the map is self-building as you play the game. So the game is going to start with the galaxy is completely unknown. No one's made first contact. And you're going to build the game board as you play. And so you got these 30 discs that represent different planets and astral phenomena you're going to run into. You've also got tons of these plastic what they call resource nodes. And there's 3 different colors. There's little nodes for culture, little nodes for production, and little nodes for research. And there are 3 different colors and 3 different shapes. And they go down on planets with these little plastic things that join them all together. The color of the plastic thing that joins them together, that represents your faction. So when you take control of a planet, you put this little plastic thing down. That's either white for the Federation or red for the Klingons. And then there's these little nodes that slot into those to show the kind of production that's going on that planet. So there's really
and I would say visual. Those are where your board starts to all like bling out nicely and look cool, and because they're translucent. Mm-hmm. Oh. So it's real. So they're very cool looking on the table, and that's where somebody who's not a Trek fan's going to immediately recognize the ships and be like, "Oh, cool, that's cool." A non-Trek fan's going to be like, "Oh, those ships are cool. Oh, wow, look at those like the buildings and the towers and those are in my opinion, are the really impressive looking pieces."
And Craig, what do you think of the art on the different system discs and on the cards?
I think the art knocks it out of the park, personally. Yeah. I love the fact that each player mat looks totally different and is really evocative of the race that it represents. And the planets are awesome. They're cool. Even I, with my limited Trek knowledge, recognized several of the planets that we opened up. I think the graphic design on the planets is great. At a glance, you can tell if there's anything dangerous on the planet, how many buildings it can support, and what types of buildings it can support. So, but in between that and the cards that you get that kind of combine to make each planet unique every time you play, the artwork and the art direction on those as well, the way they slot in, is just great. I thought it really kind of brings you in, because especially if you play it on a really cool star mat like we did,
right?
The whole galaxy just opens up before you.
The whole galaxy.
Really cool.
Okay. So question then. Yeah. So with these system discs, so you're building the galaxy as you go. I guess the question is do you feel like 30 is enough variety, and how big a table do I need to play this on?
Excellent question. So you're going to be playing on a 3-foot by 3-foot play surface. If for those who play X-Wing, that's exactly the size of an X-Wing mat. So it's that exact size. So a normal table will serve you well. Okay. Also, yes, I think as you fill the table up with the discs, you find, like, we didn't go through all of our discs when we played. And where the replayability comes is where the discs come up also, and how close they are to you, really makes it different. And then as we describe how we build the board, you'll also notice that the discs, the method for connecting the discs is very different than any other board game. It's not like there's predefined slots that are going to fill things up.
Yeah,
so
it's really not a hex map.
Right.
Okay.
It's a bunch of circles that are going to be connected by a bunch of warp lanes, essentially, and warp paths, and it's going to be pretty interesting. So we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, there's definitely, I think the replayability in the board building is one of the biggest values of the game, I think. And also get a beautiful 27-page full color rulebook that actually has a glossary in it, and a nice quick reference on the back. I love that. I really like the manufacturers who put the quick reference in the back of the rulebook for the turn order and turn sequence, as opposed to some ad for another one of their games, and I got to open the book up to find the turn sequence. So I really appreciate that. So Craig, what do you think in terms of what comes in the box? What do you think? I think
it's priced right about where it should be. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking at that going, oh my God, it's an amazing deal. But I'm looking at it going, yeah, I think it's well worth the price. I mean, between all the plastic that you're getting, the cool, the artwork, the theme drawing through the whole thing, I would have liked to see a playmat, to be honest, because I think if you're playing this on a kitchen counter, it's really gonna take away from the visual impact of all the other cool stuff. But no, I think it's right in keeping with other games of this size and scope and their pricing.
Yeah, I think so. Especially when you factor in that some amount of the money's got to go to the license, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think for the amount of plastic you get in the box, I think it's right. It's at a, it's not a steal, but it's a good deal for what you get. I don't think most people in today's market. I think you nailed it. So I really like that, and I really like the feel of all the stuff. It feels like all the components you're playing Star Trek, and it feels like the people who made the components really wanted it to be nice quality. They weren't just milking the license for what you got here, right? They really wanted to make it look nice. All right. Paul, any questions about what else is in the box, or should we go on to setup?
No, I think I got a pretty well. Actually, yeah. Just one more question about what's in the box. So, the quality varies between games. Mm-hmm. So the system discs and the warp lanes and all that. I'm assuming some sort of card stock.
Yeah, they're
good,
very
good heavy cardboard, yes. Or that thin stuff. Because you guys are touting the quality. So
very good heavy cardboard that does not warp. Very good heavy cardboard.
Oh, very good stuff.
The only bad part I had was the culture tokens. One of them started to peel because I poked it out. You know, sometimes they don't cut the tokens well. So on a couple of the tokens, I'd say they could have been a little better. But the actual board pieces, the systems and the warp lanes, those are beautiful, as are the player mats. Those are awesome, which is what you use the most of. So, yeah, I would say that the quality's right there.
Oh, good.
So let's talk about setup. So what you're going to do, this is a really interesting part. So you're going to need to define your play area. Now, you don't need a mat. You can just play on a table. You definitely want to kind of mark where you think the edges are going to be, because the galaxy can grow in all kinds of directions. I would highly recommend a mat. So if you have a star field you use for X-Wing, or you're a miniature gamer and you have one lying around, flop that out. Gale Force 9 actually is launching next month. They're going to have an official mat, for this game. So you can go that route too, but any 3x3 star mat would be perfect. But what's cool about the game is you can go larger or smaller than that if you want. So if your play surface is strangely shaped, you can play on it. You just say the edge of the table, nothing goes within 5 inches of the edge of the table or 2 inches of the edge of the table. And you can make it whatever shape you want. You got a round poker table? No problem. You got a smaller table? Fine. It's going to be a tighter game. You got a giant, massive table and you got to add in a couple extra factions from the expansions? Go for it. The game works however you want to let it go. That's a pretty neat idea. But for most games, you're going to want to flop down a 3x3 mat. And just as you started the game, agree how close you want to let yourself get to the edge of the mat. So, they recommend this in the book. You can decide to go right up to the edge. You can decide to go, make sure there's a little gap there, whatever you and your friends want to do. You're going to create the home system. So each faction has a designated disc that is their home planet, which matches. So Paul, as a Star Trek fan, you probably know what the name of the Klingon homeworld is.
The Klingon homeworld. Oh my goodness.
Oh, trivia. See?
You froze me out there.
So Kronos, the Klingon homeworld, goes in Klingon. And then the Romulan homeworld goes down there. And of course, what do you think the Federation?
You couldn't give them Romulus?
I
was already with Romulus.
Right, what about the Federation, Paul? Softball.
Oh, geez, I don't know. Maybe Earth.
There you go. Yes, exactly. So these discs.
Oh no, wait, Venus. That's it.
So these discs are all pre-set up. So you're going to put those, and you put them on the mat, sort of in a triangular fashion where they're all equidistant from each other. So, and the game recommends 18 inches. And little note, the mat that Gale Force 9 is making has little markings on the mat where you can start. So you don't have to measure anything. You just put them down. So you basically throw the three of those down. You make sure they're equidistant apart so no one's closer to anybody than anybody else is. And you got a nice, fair place to start. You're also going to set up each player's play mat. So they get their play mat with their little sliders. And the sliders are going to be set to the lowest value for both their shields and their weapons. More about that later. You're going to give each player their 30 ship tokens, their fleet markers. They're going to get 3 starbase tokens for building starbases later. They're going to get a little deck of advancement cards. So this is your tech tree, if you will, right? So there's a research deck of things. And I should say that the player mats are, not only are they shaped differently, but there's special rules on the player mats for each faction. Each faction's got a bonus and sort of a detriment. So for example, the Federation's bonus is that they get culture whenever they discover any other civilization that's like a neutral civilization. However, because the Federation is under the Prime Directive, Federation may never take over a world that is pre-warp technology. Klingons have a different thing. Klingons' negative is they cannot retreat. However, they have the bonus of they get culture if they ever win a battle with 3 or more starships in it. So more about that later, but each faction is a little different there. But then also these advancement decks, which is basically your tech research, these are also faction specific. So the kind of technology the Klingons can research, completely different than the Romulan deck, which is completely different than a Federation deck. And all the expanded factions they've announced, the Ferengi and the Cardassians, same deal. All new systems to add to your total system count, Paul, so more replayability. All new decks, new control panels, the whole 9 yards. And you're also going to get 10 of these command nodes. Those are the things that go on each planet that are your color and that the resource nodes lock into. So what's basically going to happen is you gain control of planets, you're going to put these little sort of triangular things down that are in your color. So red for Klingons, green for Romulans, and white for the Federation.
So now I have a dumb question.
Yeah, sure.
The advancement cards.
Yep.
Is that different and in addition to the exploration card deck that you mentioned in the What's in the Box, or
Yes.
same thing, different names?
Nope, they're different. So the exploration deck is not per player. That goes by the side of the board, and that's going to be shuffled up. And you're going to reveal those as you discover new systems and see what you run into. So you discover a system, it might have Q might be hanging out there and cause your ship trouble, or it might be a pre-warp civilization you got to deal with, or it might be a virgin world. You have to do nothing but just get it, or whatever. So those cards have that kind of thing going on.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
These advancement decks are specific to your faction and their technology you can research and eventually own, and that give you better powers.
Okay.
And then also each faction, and I think they did not miss a trick with this. Each group gets their own reference card that is double-sided, and they represent the 2 primary phases of the game. So one side of your card has all the building rules, and the other side of your card has all the things you can do during your turn. And actually, they are color-coded for each faction, and they are not identical, which is sort of neat too. They're pretty much identical, except the Federation has one less ability they can do, because the Federation will never invade a planet in a warlike fashion. Instead, they will try to take you over with culture, because that's how the Federation rolls. So that's pretty much setting up your player area. Then you're going to also want to, everybody gets their starting resources. There are 3 primary resources in the game, what I like to call red, blue, and yellow. These match the colors of the nodes that you're going to build on the planets that Craig mentioned, the translucent colors. So it's really easy to understand as you build stuff what kind of resources they will get. And then throughout the game, it's very clear on the building cards the kind of resource colors you need. But the 3 colors represent red is production, which is basically, your ore or whatever you need to build stuff, to basically build things. There's your research, which is generally used for scientific advancement. And then there's culture, which is essentially what you need to win the game. More about that in a bit. And then also, you're each going to start with 1 ascendancy token. These are these giant tokens that you have. And the goal of the game is to collect 5 ascendancy. First player to 5 ascendancy will win. So those are a big deal. There's also other benefits for advancing your ascendancy. So you start the game with 1 ascendancy, but then of course you can spend culture later to get more of that. You're also going to start the game with 5 command tokens. These are double-sided. They're either spent or not spent yet. And these are tokens that are used to track how many actions you can take a turn. So each person's going to get 5 of those to make sure they can track all that. You're going to, and then you're pretty much, one last thing you're going to do is you're going to go through your advancement deck and find the advancement that says starting technology, and you put that up, face up. So each faction's got 1 starting technology that's ready to go for them. For example, the Federation's starting technology is Universal Translator, which lets them get +1 on their hegemony rolls, meaning their ability to take over and influence civilization. The Klingon starting technology, Craig, is some kind of cool disruptor technology, which means they always hit on 6s, even if the enemy shields are super high. And I think the Romulans have their cloaking devices, which allow them to get alpha strikes, right? They attack first in combat, which is pretty cool. And then last but not least, you're going to go ahead and set up your home system with a control node on it and 1 resource node of each color. So your system's got that, and then you're also going to put 3 ships in your home system as well.
Yeah.
Right? And then you're pretty much ready to go. The last thing you got to do is prepare the stack of system disks. And to do this, you're going to separate out all the planets and all the phenomenon. You're going to shuffle the planets up, take out 2 for each player, which is normally 6, but they have that rule because sometimes there's more players than 3 eventually. So you take out those 6. Then you're going to shuffle all the remaining discs with the phenomenon together and then put the 6 on top of that, which basically means it's guaranteeing the first 6 systems you explore are guaranteed to be planets before you start running into phenomenon. Right? And now you're ready to play. Sounds like a lot, but it's really pretty simple. Give the player all their stuff, lay out their player mats, define a play space, and throw down your 3 home systems, throw your resources in there and your ships, and you're ready to go. It's pretty simple. Making sense, Paul, so far?
Yeah, so far so good. Although you've hit on about it sounded like about three different ways to win.
There are.
So,
yes.
So how do I win? How do I win this thing?
Excellent question. Well, when you start to explain the rules to players, the first thing I always try to do, remind myself to do, is to tell people how to win. There are really only two ways to win the game, but there are many paths to those ways. So the first way is the primary way, the Ascendancy victory, and the name of the game is Star Trek Ascendancy. So there you go. And to get there, you need to collect 5 Ascendancy, and that is those big Ascendancy tokens. And anytime during your turn, you can buy Ascendancy tokens with culture. And it's 5 culture to buy a single Ascendancy token, and it's 5 Ascendancy to win the game, right? So when I said earlier, culture wins the game, that's because culture lets you buy Ascendancy, and Ascendancy wins the game, right? So and there are other things to spend culture on. So that you'll be tempted to spend culture in other places, and that's fine, but just keep in mind that it's culture that buys Ascendancy, Ascendancy wins the game. There is a secondary way to win the game, and that is with a Supremacy victory, and that's basically total takeover. And that happens if a single player controls 3 home systems, including his own, he or she wins the game, right? So that's interesting. It's always 3, no matter how many players. So as you add expansions to this game, it's still control 3 and win. But of course, in the starter box here, it's control everybody, essentially. So you can take out all the home systems. That's one way to do it, or the Ascendancy victory. And given how people can defend their home systems and stuff, the Ascendancy victory is generally more likely, although I've seen both so far. I've seen Ascendancy and Supremacy victories. If it happens to be a tie, because what happens is during the end phase of the round, you assess victory. So it's possible for 2 players to achieve 5 Ascendancy, or, well, I guess you couldn't really control all the systems, but to achieve 5 Ascendancy in the same turn. If that happens, then it goes to the player with the most systems they control as a tiebreaker. Make sense?
And if that's still tied, it's a knife fight in the parking lot,
yeah,
right?
Then you shake hands and buy each other a beer because you both won, right? So
there you go.
So yeah, so that's the ways to win. So does it make sense, Paul? So really, it's
so far so good.
I mean, the sort of the economic engine way is somehow build a system that cranks out a lot of, culture return and then spend that on Ascendancy. But your opponents are going to be like, look at all that great culture I can go capture, and then you get a fight. So that's how you win. So let's talk about how to play. There's really only 3 main phases. And what I like about this game is it's pretty easy to teach at the table. So there's really only 3 main phases. There's the initiative phase. You figure out player order. Then there's the execution phase where you build stuff and move stuff and fight. And then there's the recharge phase where you do all the end phase stuff. And then you repeat. So now there's some interesting mechanics in this game. So as I mentioned before, Paul, the board's going to be built dynamically. And as you build the board dynamically, you're going to build these little space lanes, and they're going to connect the systems together. And until there is a path that links 2 of the home systems together. So in the beginning of the game, there is no path connecting Paul, your Romulans, to my Federation, or Craig's Klingons to either of us either. And only through playing the game are we eventually going to connect up a path between homeworlds. Once there is a path between that, no matter how long it is, once there's a navigable path between 2 homeworlds, those 2 players are said to have made first contact. And when that happens, you can start bidding for initiative order. Those 2 players can, because they're now enlightened races who realize they're not alone in the universe. However, prior to that, initiative order is totally random, and it comes with player order cards, and you shuffle them up and deal them out, and then that is the player order. But as soon as 2 players make contact, then you can bid your resources to try to be player 1 or actually pick your player order. So there are going to be times as the game progresses where it's going to be really important to you to go first or second or whatever. And in those cases, you might want to bid some resources. And that option is available to you once you've made first contact.
So let me see if I get this straight. So let's say you and I make first contact. So then we're bidding against each other for player 1 and player 2, and Craig's automatically player 3 because he hasn't made contact yet.
That's correct. But actually, we can pick any number we want. So you could pick 2 and I could pick 3, and Craig's whatever's left. Right? So,
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And in larger player count games, whoever doesn't bid is just randomly chosen whatever's left. So the winning bid player picks whichever player number he wants, and then the second winning bid player picks whatever number he wants, and anybody who didn't bid is randomly dealt whatever's left. Right.
All right.
But in the beginning of the game, nobody's made contact. You just deal out the 3 cards and start playing. So, but keep in mind that initiative is not random all the time. And I like this mechanic because as the game escalates, that starts to really matter near the end game. So that's pretty much the initiative phase. It's pretty simple. You've determined player order. Next is the execution phase. And this is where there's that handy quick reference card that I think makes it pretty easy. So Craig, in your game, was it pretty easy to follow what to do with the quick reference card?
Yes, it was very easy. Yeah.
So the first,
and it's neat. Like there's not a certain order. You can do any of the stuff in any order. But the cool thing is the interaction is some of the stuff you want to do is on the build side of the card, and some of that stuff you want to do is on the action side of the card. So that's where it all comes in, where you got to be tricky and think ahead. Right.
So for example, the build ships. So on the building side of the card, so the first thing is the building phase. Now, technically, by the rules, you're supposed to build in player order. Each player does all their building in player order, then they do all their commanding. But we played that building phase was simultaneous, and then the command phase was in player order, because we felt most of the time it really didn't matter, and it kept the game moving faster. But in the building phase, essentially, the building side of your card pretty much shows you the prices to build anything. And you can build stuff. So you can build ships, and they cost you 1 production token, and you place one of your plastic ships in either your home system or any system where you have a starbase. Now, what's interesting, as Craig mentioned earlier, on the other side of the card, one of the commands is build a starbase. You actually build a starbase because it's called, I think it's called commission a starbase. So when you commission a starbase, it's not actually a build action, it's in the execution action. So there's no way to build a starbase and build ships on it in the same turn, because you have to do that in the execution phase. So they control sort of sequencing and making sure weird things don't happen just by where they happen on the card, which is kind of neat. So on the building side, you can build ships. You can build control nodes. Resource nodes on any of the planets you own. And also one thing we should note, that the planets have color icons indicating the type of resource nodes you can build on the planet. The maximum number of nodes you can have on a planet is 3. And sometimes the planet will show one red, one yellow, and one blue, meaning you can have one of each node. Sometimes the planet will show only a red node. You can have one red node and that's it. Sometimes the planet will show a red and a blue and a any, which means the third node can be whatever you want. One word of advice, the culture stuff seems to be pretty rare. I got lucky last game, but it seems pretty rare. So grab the culture when you can, because that's obviously one of the big ways to victory.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's going to happen is you're going to reveal planets during your movement phase. You're going to find these things, and you're going to build stuff on them, and that's how you do in the building phase. So the building phase, you can build colonies or build nodes on any planets you already own. You can also build colonies, and to build a colony, it costs you a spaceship, and the spaceship's got to be where you want to have the colony. So let's say you've discovered a planet, there's nobody on it, you got a ship in orbit, you can spend the ship and spend 1 culture, and you get a colony on the planet. And then now that the colony's on the planet, you can now start building nodes on there. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much the build phase. The only thing you should know about the build phase is at the bottom of the build phase, you can spend research also. And you can either spend research on sliding up your weapons value or sliding up your shields value. More about that in combat in a minute. Or you can spend some of your research on any of the face-up research cards you have to start getting them to being done. And each of the cards that you're going to research has a number in the corner of how many research tokens it takes to complete the research. So obviously the more powerful stuff takes more research. And during the command phase, you're going to be able to flip more cards over to pick what you're going to research. And in the building phase, you're going to add more tokens.
Right. And that's limited by how many buildings you own, right?
That's right. So the number of blue research buildings limits how many research projects you can have at a time.
Yeah, so you can't keep flipping. Now, here's a question that I have for you. If you want, and you've already got max cards flipped, can you flip new ones and get rid of old ones?
Yes, but you'd lose any tokens that are on those old ones. So
right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let me make sure I'm following this correctly. So
sure.
When do I'm gathering that I spend production, research, and culture on my various things in the build phase.
Yes.
And that I'm getting those from the nodes on the planets I control. Mm-hmm. But when and how much do I get?
Good question. So you start the game with 3 of each. So in the beginning of the game, you're going to have some. And then during the recharge phase, so during the end phase of the turn.
Oh, okay. We haven't got there yet.
You haven't got there yet. So in the end of the turn, you get 1 resource for each building you control of that color. Right? Okay. So if I've got 3 blue buildings, I get 3 research tokens. If I've got 3 yellow buildings, I get 3 culture. If I've got 3 red buildings, I get 3 red, right? So it's really simple to remember. The more red stuff I want, I got to go build more red buildings. And if I want more blue stuff, so I don't even have to really remember that research is called research and production is called production. I just got to remember, oh, look, on the build card, it says to build a ship, I need a red thing. If I want to build lots of ships, I need lots of red. If I want to generate lots of red, I need to build and control lots of planet with lots of red stuff on it, right? So it's pretty simple to remember.
Okay.
And for our colorblind listeners out there, no worries. All these tokens are different shapes and have different icons on them. And that iconography also appears in the cards. And all the nodes have different shapes as well. So you can also identify what's what by shape in addition to color.
Oh, very nice.
So that's the building phase. So it's pretty straightforward. And what I like about it is the building mechanic is very simple. And our building phases seem to go pretty quick, right, Craig? There wasn't a lot of analysis paralysis in those building phases.
No. And I would say everything goes by relatively quickly. I think the length of the game generally is going to come from you're trying to expand, get the stuff that you need, and then put all your pieces together for whatever end run you're going to make to win the game.
Right. So let's talk about the command phase now, Paul. So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is the real part of the game. So in the command phase, remember I mentioned each player's got 5 command tokens. And so in player order now, the player's going to do as many commands as he wants. And these command options are all listed on the card. And each of these command options costs 1 command token. So you flip them over as you do them. And you can repeat commands. So for example, one of the commands is move a ship. And when you move a ship, if you move it under impulse power, it can move 2 spaces. And after I move that ship, I want to move it again, no problem. I just flip another command token and move them again. But just keeping in mind that if I've got, a lot of ships I want to move, that's a lot of commands to give. So let's talk about movement for a second. So when I go to move a ship, there are 2 types of movement in the Star Trek universe, and there are 2 types of movement in the board game. There's impulse power and there's warp speed. Impulse is sort of the way you'll start out the game, so I'll describe that first. So in a system, let's say you want one of your ships to move. So you're going to flip a command token over and you're going to say, I'm going to move this ship. And the first thing you want to do is leave the system. So in the beginning of the game, all you have is your home system. It's just a circle. And you can just pick a direction, and there's a special D6 in there. And if you roll this D6 to leave a system that's been unexplored from, you're going to roll it. The D6 has 2s, 3s, and 4s on it. So you're going to get one of those numbers. And it's going to tell you the length, essentially, of the warp path. So you then go to you've got all these little paths, these little sort of stick-shaped things, and you grab the one that matches the length of the number you rolled, and you put it against the circle you're leaving, the system you're leaving, and you can put it in any direction you want, and then you start moving your ship down that path. So if I rolled a 4, I would add a length 4 sort of path to my home world, and I'd move my ship 2 along the path, and the path's got 4 spaces on it. Now, since he hasn't got to the end of the path yet, I don't get to see what planet's at the end of the path. But on my homeworld now, I got this path started that a ship is traveling down. I could then do another command to move the ship 2 more, which would get him to near the end of the path. And then I could do another command, which would move the ship off the end of the path into that unexplored region of space, which would then allow me to flip over a system circle and put it at the end of the path. And now I've essentially discovered a new system and connected my home system to another system. Does that make sense, Paul?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So a couple notes. If I start my ship down a path, but never get to the next system, and then decide to turn the ship around and head back to my home system, at any time during my turn, if there's nobody on that path, and it's not connected to anything, the path's removed from the board. Basically, you didn't go far enough to discover anything, the path's removed. So it's kind of neat. You can't have a bunch of dangling paths. Also, on the bottom of each system, there is a number which indicates the maximum number of paths that can connect to that system. So your home systems all have 4 paths, but as you unveil other systems, some will only be 2, some will only be 3. So you're going to run into these systems that don't have a lot of entrances and exits, and they kind of become dead ends and blocks.
Neat.
So you're leaving your system, you roll a distance, you get a path, you start down the path, you get to the end of the path, you decide to move that extra little bit, and you move your ship into the unexplored system. So then you're going to take the top disc off the pile, flip it over, and you see you've got a new planet. Awesome, right? Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes most of the time you'll reveal planets that look safe. It's just a planet, and it's showing you the kind of resources you can build there. That's great. But now you've also got to flip over one of those Explore cards we mentioned, Paul, right? Mm-hmm. And the Explorer card's going to have some kind of event that happens there. It might be that there's a pre-warp civilization with a production node already on the planet that you got to go take over. Or maybe it's a civilization's already discovered warp and it's harder to take over. Or maybe the planet's empty, but Q's sitting there and he's going to send your ship halfway across the galaxy. Mm-hmm. Or I've had one that's a precursor from one of the other factions, so another player has a base already there, which is kind of crazy.
Oh, that's cool.
So all kinds of crazy stuff can happen on these cards. Pretty much anything from any of the Star Trek series you've ever seen. It can be First Generation, Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine. These cards all reference events from those different things, right? And
so they pull directly from the episodes,
and they include the artwork. So it's all there. I mean, you'll know exactly, like the Traveler there with Wesley's there, like the time the time episode.
So those the Roman gods.
The Roman gods were there. Right?
Okay.
All kinds of craziness is there.
Greek.
Another thing Greek, thank you. The other thing you might notice is there's sometimes in the top of a planet, there's a little red alert symbol with a number in it. And that means it's hazardous to travel into that system. And if you see one of those, you got to roll a D6 for each of your ships that just entered. And if you roll equal to or higher than that number, your ship is destroyed. So that's bad. However, if you've increased your shield value, your shields in the game start at 0. But if you spend research tokens to upgrade your shields, you can add 1 to the number the dice needs to be in that hazard. So if the hazard is normally a 5+ and you've got a level 1 shield, the hazard is now a 6+, right? So raising your shields already makes it safer to travel into those places. Now, so that's basic movement. One other cool thing, Paul, I think is really interesting is there's a rule in the game that says the system is not fixed as long as only one lane connects it. And so what that means is, let's say Craig is leaving one of his systems, and I've got a system that's kind of near his, but it's been pivoted to the right. As long as there's only one lane connecting it, Craig can pivot it around its source world and slide it so he can try to connect them. So you can basically pivot things. So the galaxy is really very undefined until systems have 2 connectors to them. And once they have 2 connectors, they're fixed and can't move anymore.
Okay. So
really interesting.
That's how things shift around.
Yeah.
That avoids that problem of I just can't quite reach because you put it at an odd angle.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool. But then you're incented to really start getting 2 connections to places if you really want to lock it down and make it not moving. You kind of try to define the map, right? Yeah. So it's the way the board grows is really interesting. Craig, what did you think of the board building dynamics?
I think it's great because it's going to be different every time. The distance between things is going to be different every time. I mean, I think like at every decision point they made in the design, they really doubled down on replayability. It looks awesome because you've got like these routes that are going around. It looks like a real, quote unquote, real, star map as opposed to a hex board or whatever, like all the other options that you've seen in the other games that are like this. And it just really lends itself to this kind of storytelling where it almost feels a little bit like it's a miniatures game because the terrain is sort of developing as you go. You're not locked into a board game board. Mm-hmm. It sort of expands the game out beyond board game to me.
Yeah, I think that part's really interesting to me too.
Now,
go ahead, Paul.
Question on building the board. So with the home planets are, as you said, in setup are about 18 inches apart. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like in practice? Is that my home planet a newly discovered system, Craig's home planet, or is there room in between there for several planets before I'm right on top of
several?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at
I would say there's like when we finally connected, I think there was between 5 and 6 planets between each of our home systems.
Yes. So there's a lot. It depends on the lengths you roll and things, but you can typically 5 to 6 nodes between 2 source worlds. Yep.
And do you find at all that that table building encourages the let me make some pocket expansions here behind me where I'm exploring paths that are leading behind my home system and away from the other players?
You can do that, you can do that. There's not a lot of room behind your home system. You can certainly. I tried that trick based on what I was starting to discover. But there is an incentive to make first contact, Paul, and this is an interesting mechanic in the game. So what I didn't mention was each player also has 3 trade agreement cards. Okay. And these trade agreement cards have your faction logo on them. And at the bottom of the trade agreement cards, one of them has 3 production icons, one has 2 production icons, and one has 1 production icon. Now, at the moment, Craig and I make first contact. So at the moment that there is a traceable path from my homeworld to Craig's homeworld, we have first contact, which allows us to bid, which is one incentive. Mm-hmm. But we also have the ability I can immediately offer Craig a trade agreement. So I can say, Craig, I am offering you my one and only level 3 production trade, which means in the end phase, not only does Craig get production for each of the red, bases he owns, he also gets 3 production from having that card for me. Now, 3 production is a huge amount because you start the game with generating 1 production a turn. So 3 is huge. And I only have 1 to give away. So if I give my 3 production to Craig, Paul, and then you connect with me, I don't have 3 production to give you. I can only give you a 2 or a 1. And you're like, well, I don't know, Russ. I'm not going to give you a 3 production for a 2, but Craig's already given me his 3 production. So now, if I can make first contact with Craig quickly, and I trust Craig, then he and I can make a quick deal, and we'll be generating 3 extra production each a turn, and you, Paul, are left out in the cold because you were playing all safe back in your corner and not connecting the worlds, right? And you can't get the player order. So there's kind of this, by connecting to you early, I'm exposing myself to attack, but at the same time, if I'm a peaceful people, we can make this mutually beneficial, right? And so it's really interesting. The trade, and what also happens is as soon as you establish a trade agreement, you have implied peace. And unless you do something to fight each other, you can actually allow each other to pass through your systems. Because one other thing I didn't mention in movement is you may not enter a space that has other players' ships in it. You actually fight from adjacent spaces. So I can't enter your space unless we have a trade agreement. And if we do, I have to ask you at the moment I go ahead to move in, and you have to say yes. And if I've already spent my movement to get right outside your thing, and then I say, Paul, I've just spent, 3 commands to get right up next to your space. May I enter? And the whole time I'm doing it, you're saying yes, yes, yes. And I get everything. And you're like, you know what? No, I've wasted all that movement and I can't get in. And it's right in the rules. That's how it works. I'm like, right.
That's cold.
Oh yeah. Space is cold. So that's another mechanic. So yes, you can totally try to spin in the backfield. Now there's only so much room back there. Eventually you're going to have to start expanding towards each other, and get there. And what's also going to happen is some of the players are going to get lucky and find culture generating worlds faster than you are, right? And when that happens, you're going to see they have a path to victory faster than you can get. And the way you're going to have to stop them is connect and attack. Craig had this happen to him last night. He was so the Federation, I was generating no production. I had like 4 ships in my entire fleet. I was completely defenseless, but I had happened to get a bunch of culture generating stuff. And I was just trying to hide in my corner and like ignore me and generate stuff. Craig connected to me and had this massive fleet that could wipe me out. And he started to make his move. He just timed it a little off, and we were playing accelerated play too, so it went a little faster. So there's definitely incentives to connect to answer your question in a roundabout way.
Okay.
In fact, that's where you're going to have to. You're going to have to connect,
right?
Especially if, that was my only issue with the game that we played was that Russ was really lucky with culture close by, so he was kind of like churning out a victory point a turn if he didn't want to expand further and spend his culture on other things. Meanwhile, Randy ran into like a wall of level 3 warp capable civilizations all around his homeworld that basically barricaded him into his corner, and ended up he had to spend several turns going around these planets that there was no way for him to take over militarily or diplomatically. So just the luck of the draw with the cards, the cards, not the planets, but the cards that kind of like define what the planets are and how they react to you, really kind of gave Russ a huge boost and gave Randy a huge kick to the, sensitive spots.
Right.
And do you find that happens frequently, rarely?
I think that's going to be part of the game, right? So the randomness of the game is going to turn some people off. I think you have diplomatic and tactical options to respond to it. So you have to be the kind of player who likes to get into that situation and work your way out of it. Right?
Yeah, I don't think you can go into this game going, this is going to be my path to victory. Right. You have to kind of develop your strategy as you go.
And one of the downsides for my thing was, like, no one would make trade agreements with me. Because I was so obviously winning, and they knew it was basically the table turned against me, and they basically couldn't. Now we were playing the accelerated game mode because Craig had a hard stop, and so we were playing 4 culture instead of 5 to buy ascendancy tokens, which is an optional rule. If we were playing 5, Craig would have had time to come in and pretty much wipe me out. So there was a response they had, and then that would have pretty much thrown me off balance. I couldn't build a fleet fast enough to stop him. And then it would have come down to Randy and Craig.
Well, and if this had been my second play, I probably would have known enough to use my command tokens better, because I had the excellent potential of taking out one of your culture nodes but I didn't realize I had to go through 2 levels of fighting to get to that.
Right.
And so I spent all of my points to overwhelm him in one area where there was absolutely no hope for him to survive, as opposed to playing it. I still had overwhelming odds, just not double overwhelming odds to kind of hit him twice, which is what I needed to do to take out the node. So,
Right.
the game didn't hand itself to Russ. It gave him an advantage that then he was able to parlay into a quick game, which is good because traffic on the highways was ridiculous last night. But yeah, I wouldn't say that the game was lost on those flips. They just gave Russ an advantage that he, as the Federation, already kind of gets, because it's his it's his strong suit.
Yeah. So one thing you might have noticed as I described the fact that it can be 6, nodes between my home world and yours. And if these little channels are, 3 to 4 long each, that's a lot of impulse movement to get from one side of the galaxy to the other. And it would take you a lot of command tokens to move your ships all the way over there, especially if you're trying to move 5 ships halfway across the board. No worries.
Yeah, that sounds like multiple turns.
Except, of course, we are all warp-capable species, and we have warp drive. So the second way you can move is to use warp. And so to go to warp, what you do is you flip over one of your command tokens, you take the ship that's going to warp off the board, and you put it next to the node where it's going into warp, and you put a warp token next to it, pointing towards the node it left. So it's no longer in real space. The ship's not on the board anymore, but you know where it left from. You can then, at the end of each turn, the ship will accumulate more warp tokens, or you can flip over more command tokens to add more warp tokens to your ship. Then you can spend a command token to have the ship come out of warp, and where it can come out of warp is the number of nodes away equal to its warp tokens. So, for example, if it goes into warp, picks up 2 warp tokens, and you decide to come out of warp, you then can move 3 systems, 3 whole circles, boom, 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 right down the board. So you get more warp tokens the longer you stay in warp. So basically, you can set some ships up in warp, build up 4, 5, 6, 7 warp tokens, and now you can pretty much strike anywhere on the table. So you can get around the board very quickly.
And that's that ignores the whole "may I move through your system" because we have a trade agreement.
No, you still can't warp through other ships. That's a thing. So you still have to come out. You can still bottleneck your opponent, but it does let you get around the board. And here's the other thing, though, Paul. As you explore, what you want to try to do is see if you can connect multiple routes to your opponent's soft underbellies, so that it would take him a lot of fleets and very clever placements to be able to block all the possible routes. Because what warp travel does let you do is that long routes, the long roundabout route isn't really that long. So you've got to block every single way to the ship. So it's pretty interesting.
Gotcha.
But warping feels exactly right and really feels quintessentially Star Trek. So I think they did a really good job of the warping mechanic.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So let's get so that's the most complicated step is movement, only because of how the board builds. But basically, once the board is built, you're really just either impulsing a ship 2 spaces or warping. One other thing we should mention is another thing you can do during this phase is something called commission a fleet. And you can commission a fleet either at your starbase or at your home system. And each player has 3 fleet cards, which are these sort of oversized cards, which have special rules on them and a bunch of spaces to put ships. And then remember, there's also these giant fleet tokens that are bigger than your normal ships and have numbers on them, 1, 2, 3, and they correspond to the cards. When you commission a fleet, you can take those ships off the board and put them on the fleet card you want to commission, and then you put the fleet token back on the board. And what that lets you do now is you can move fleet tokens with one command, just like you move ships. You can put them in warp, you can move 2 at a time, and those fleet cards can hold, depending on the fleet and the faction, large numbers of ships. So it allows you to move large numbers of ships around the board with a single command. And so you can move them in batch, right? And what's really interesting is these different fleets have different special rules. So fleet number 1 for the Federation might be a colony fleet, which gives you bonuses and makes it cheaper to colonize. Fleet number 2 for the Federation might be a science fleet, makes it more resistance to dangerous space travel. Fleet number 1 for the Klingons might be a battle group that gets to reroll 1s in combat. It might be the Romulans might have like another different kind of science fleet. So what's cool is the fleet cards are also asymmetric and faction specific. And they are double-sided. So one side for the Klingons might be reroll your 1s. The other side might have no special rules, but could hold like 15 ships. So you can send tons of ships into battle in one fleet.
Yeah.
And the Federation has no fleets that can be higher than like 7. So it's really interesting. The battle group thing the fleet thing is a really interesting mechanic also, and I really like how that works.
Yeah. And it's where you saves all your command points for moving and fighting.
Exactly.
So now you've said it a couple of times now. You've mentioned star bases. So how do I get Deep Space Nine?
Excellent question. So each player has 3 starbase tokens. They're pretty cool. They're little circles with a half moon cut out that makes them attach right to the planetary circles and kind of become permanent parts of the planetary circle. So during the command phase, another thing you can do with your command token, instead of commissioning a fleet, you can commission a starbase. And what's interesting is the starbase costs you nothing to commission. It's free. But the rule is you can only have 1 starbase on the board for every ascendancy token you have, up to a maximum of 3. So in the beginning of the game, you can only have 1 starbase. Later, you can have more. What's interesting about starbases is because they're so valuable, no one ever destroys them. They just capture them, just like Deep Space Nine, right? So once you build the starbase, it's not technically your starbase. It's whoever controls the planet it's attached to starbase. So obviously you'll build the starbase in a system you control, but if Craig later invades my system and takes it over, that starbase is now Craig's. The advantage of the starbase is a couple things. 1, you get an additional command token for each starbase you control, so now you get more actions per turn. 2, wherever you have a starbase, you can also now commission fleets and build ships in addition to your home world. So it's giving you more deployment tactical options as well. So the starbase gives you an extra die in defense when you're defending that system. So the starbase is powerful, but don't put it in a place that's easy for the enemy to grab because they're going to take it like Deep Space Nine, and all of a sudden the Cardassians lost their starbase.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
It's real simple.
I think the rise of the Kardashian family is the worst thing that could have ever happened to the Star Trek community.
Yes, probably so. So a couple of things you can do. You can start a space battle. And what I like about this game is combat is brutal, deadly, and pretty simple.
And fast.
So what you do is
brutal, deadly, and simple. I like it.
So basically, you'll very rarely be fighting in the same space. It can happen. Like, for example, let's say I say, Paul, am I onto your space? And Paul says, we have a treaty, sure. And then in my next turn, I decide, okay, Paul, I'm in your space. I'm going to attack you now anyway because I'm a jerk. And Paul's like, fine, we give back our trade agreements and we start fighting. But most of the time, what's going to happen is Craig and I are already enemies. Craig parks his ships all adjacent to one of my spots and decides he's going to spend a command token to do an attack action. And all of his ships that are in or adjacent to that sector can fight. And all we do is we roll a D6 for each of our ships in the battle. And remember on our player mats, there's a slider for our weapons. And in the beginning of the game, your weapon starts at a 5+. So every D6 I roll with a 5 or better is a success. And that will destroy one of my opponent's ships. However, if my opponent's shields are above 0, his shield value adds to my target number that I need based on my weapons to make it that much harder. So for example, if I have basic weapons, which means I hit on a 5, and Craig has level 1 shields, then 1 + 5 is 6. So now I need to roll 6 to hurt Craig.
Yeah.
If Craig has level 2 shields, I would need a 7, which means I can't actually hurt Craig.
Ah, okay.
Now the Klingons have cool technology, which allows them to always hit you on a 6. So that's pretty good. So you really got to watch your opponents, because if they're jacking their shields up, by the way, raising your shields and weapons are super expensive in research. So it's not easy. But if you start building those things up, it can really scare. You don't need a lot. People with high shields don't need a lot of ships to defend well. And, so you'll really got to watch that and see what's going on. But I like it because it's easy to just glance at your opponent's little board and you can see his sliders and see what he's up to.
Okay. And when you say all your ships that you have out adjacent to his system that are going to attack, you're talking about those that are impulse power going through the little lanes, plus here's all 3 of my fleets that are hanging out in warp space.
Well, if it's in warp, it can't fight. But it could be, I've got a fleet adjacent to you with 6 ships in the fleet, and then I've got 2 other guys that are in the lanes adjacent to your fleet your space as well. Right. But you can't fight from warp. What you could do, Paul, is going in the start of my turn, I've got a fleet in warp. My first command is the fleet comes out of warp right next to your system. And then I got 2 more ships moving to impulse power. There's 2 more commands. Now they're next to your system. And then with my next command token, I have that in everybody that's adjacent to your place attacks, which is 6 ships in the fleet plus 2 guys here and 2 guys there. So I'm hitting you with 10 dice of attack, right? Meanwhile, I'm at my home world. That's Craig attacking me. It's basically what happened last night. Meanwhile, Craig, I've got, 4 ships there defending, but I've got level 1 shields. So Craig's hit me on 6s with 10 dice and I'm hitting on him on 5s or whatever. but he gets lucky.
Except that Craig was building his weapons the same time Russ was building his shield. So Russ was actually getting hit on 4s.
It was not good.
With 12 dice.
Yes. So what happens is you roll the attacker rolls all his dice.
It was a great victory.
Right. Battle is simultaneous, Paul. So everybody rolls their dice. They count up their hits. They remove their casualties. And then
simultaneous without cloaking technology.
Well, there's some special rules, right? So then once everybody's dead, you have it. Once the casualties are removed, if one side
everybody's dead, okay.
If one side is wiped out, then the other side wins clearly. And then they got to spend extra to move in, though. That's the other thing. So don't forget that. But then though, what could happen though is there's people left on both sides, right? Craig might kill 2 of my ships. I might kill 3 of Craig's ships.
This is the part that I didn't understand.
Now the battle automatically continues unless one side chooses to retreat. Now the Klingons have a special rule. They never retreat because Klingons. But if the side does choose to retreat, they simply get a free impulse move and they got to get out. And they have to have a way to get out. If they're blocked in, they can't escape and they might as well keep fighting. So if you retreat, then the other guy wins and that's the end of that. So that's how it works. So you're going to keep fighting until one side is either destroyed or retreats.
Okay.
But there are some special rules. So the Klingons can't retreat. The Romulans, if it's in their turn with their cloaking devices, they get to roll their dice before you roll yours. So they get to roll their dice, do their damage to you, and then whatever's left in your fleet gets to fight back. So they have an advantage with cloaking devices, that kind of thing. So that's combat. It's pretty simple. And then ground combat is almost identical, except instead of rolling for the number of ships you have. So if you have ships in orbit now, you've cleared my orbital defenses. Craig has now moved into the sector. He's going to spend another command token to attack my planet. Now,
if only he had one more command token.
I know he didn't have it. So now I get to roll 1 die for each building on the ground, including the little structure that joins them all together. And Craig is rolling 1 die for each of his ships. Same to hit rolls and shields apply to the buildings to do the ships. Just look at your sliders. And then if Craig hits less than the number of buildings I have, he destroys that many buildings. If he hits equal to the number of buildings I have, he wipes me out completely. But if he hits with more successes than I have buildings, he has dominated victory. I take no damage, but he takes control of the planet. So he gets a nice clean takeover with no damage done to my civilization. Basically, my people surrender, essentially.
Oh, okay.
So it's overwhelming odds. So what you don't really want is exact number because you got to rebuild all that now. You basically leveled the planet and you got to rebuild the whole thing, which is expensive. So you want a nice, clean, overwhelming victory is what you really want.
Yep.
And with the planet defense, it's the same as with the ship battles. You're
just counting.
Okay, there's defenders still left, so we go another round of combat.
Exactly.
We keep going until
the planet can't retreat. The starships can. So the starships can decide this is getting too hot for my blood. I'm out. But and you basically it's exactly the same as a space battle. You're just counting plastic on the planet for the defenders' dice pool.
Gotcha.
That's it.
Okay.
So it's pretty simple stuff. It's very, very fast.
Plus of this. The station, right? You get +1 die for that.
Yeah, the space station actually contributes to space battles, not to ground assaults.
Oh, does it? Oh, okay. I did not know that.
So that's pretty much combat. Now, one other thing you can do with your command tokens, and again, what's nice about this is it's all on the back of your quick reference card. So all these options are right there reminding you they exist all the time. And one thing to remember, Paul, is the Federation cannot initiate ground combat. It's like attacking civilian targets. We would never do that in the Federation. So
how does the Federation invade?
Well, good question. We do the other option, which is called a cultural hegemony. We are going to explain to you, Paul, the value and awesomeness that is the free and noble organization that is the United Federation of Planets. And clearly, you want to join our cause and not be part of this filthy Klingon empire any longer, right? So how this works, this is called a cultural hegemony. It is a non-combat sort of cultural influence. And a lot of these 4X games have them, right? If you ever played Civilization where you can take over cities with, with the culture expanding, that kind of thing. That's the fluff part of this. So what you do is you're going to make a hegemony attempt. How that works, if I'm doing it to Craig, for example, I have to have ships in orbit. So I have to basically clear his ships out. Now I'm orbiting his planet. I'm awesome. He loves the Federation. Craig's people want to join me, but I got to convince him it's worth it. So I'm going to roll a D6 and add my ascendancy value, and Craig's going to roll a d6 and add his ascendancy value plus his buildings on the planet, and that is going to be the number that I need to exceed that number to get them to join me. Now, the Federation have a special rule called universal translators, which give us +1 to that roll. So we're better at hegemony takeovers, and we can't do ground combat takeovers, right?
Yep.
And this also works for NPC planets. So when you discover some planets that are pre-warp or whatever and hanging out there, you can do this hegemony takeover. The nice thing about hegemony takeovers is it's a free colonization because you just put your base down in place of Craig's, and there's no chance for blowing the buildings up by accident. So it's kind of nice. The downside to it is it's expensive in culture. You got to spend one culture to try it, and if you succeed, you got to spend another culture. So it's 2 culture to take over another world.
It also sounds very hard to do. I mean, I'm thinking if there's enough buildings on the planet, that's a real uphill battle.
It can be hard, which is why you want to jack your ascendancy, right? So this is one of those. What I like about this is hegemony takeovers are what the Federation needs to do. And to ensure hegemony takeovers, you need to buy ascendancy tokens. And that also drives one of the players to try to win the game. Because theoretically in this game, everybody could just never buy an ascendancy token and the game will go on forever. But the Federation player in particular, but all players in general, if you want to defend against hegemony takeovers, because here's an example, Paul. If Craig has 3 buildings on the planet, right? And, or 3's a lot. Let's say he has 2 buildings, or he's barely taken the planet over and he's got 1 base and a building. It's 2. And let's say I've got 2 ascendancy and Craig's got 1. I'm going into that roll. Craig's got plus 1. I've got plus 1. And then I'm Federation, so I've got an additional plus 1. So now I've got plus 2. Federation also has got a bunch of tech they can research. Let you reroll hegemony rolls. Like Federation, half the Federation's tech deck is all about making hegemony really easy for them. So you've got to, so Craig's then incented with crud. I've got to really jack my ascendancy 2 to be able to defend against this crazy Federation guy, or I got to put a bunch of ships in orbit that blow his fleet up before they can go spread their filthy lies about how good the Federation is. So it's really pretty cool. Now, anybody can do the hegemony takeover. Federation's just particularly good at it, right?
Gotcha.
So that's the one other thing you can do. And the last thing you can do during your turn with your command tokens is launch new projects. And what this lets you do is take 2 cards off your research deck, choose one you like and put it face up in your research row that then during the build phase allows you to put research tokens on it. So during the execution phase is when you go ahead and pull new research projects to start. And then during the build phase is when you put research tokens on the research. And again, this is not hard to remember because it's all in your quick reference card.
Yep.
And those are all the things you can do in the game. Does that make sense, Paul?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
That's pretty much the game. The last phase is the recharge phase, which is after all 3 of us players have gone through and exhausted all of our commands. And it goes pretty quick because let's face it, in the beginning of the game, you're just exploring. There's no combat. You move your ships around a little bit. Maybe you found a starbase someplace and then, your turn's done and now it's Craig's turn. He does the same thing. Then in the recharge phase, you check for victory. Did anybody win yet? Nope. Okay. You generate resources. So this is your point, Paul, earlier. You get 1 token for each of the colored buildings you control. Plus, if there's any trade deals, you get the tokens from those as well.
Yep.
And then last, you get the maintenance part, which means in the maintenance phase, you go ahead and flip over all your used command tokens. Every ship that's in warp gets another warp token for free because they're accelerating. And you may have revealed some phenomenon. So one thing I didn't mention earlier is as you're exploring space, in addition to finding planets, later in the system deck, you're going to start revealing circles that are not planets, but rather they're phenomenon, like, a nebula or a star cluster or something. It doesn't have any planets in it. These things are almost always dangerous, so you might lose ships in there, but they also have a research token in it. And if you survive the dangers, you get a free research token. And then during the recharge phase, the research tokens come back to those. So you can basically mine the nebulas and other phenomenon for more research. So you can generate research from research buildings.
But it's dangerous.
Right. But then most of the factions have some form of science fleet that have bonuses to collect that stuff.
And by most, he means 2 out of 3.
Not the Klingons, because they're not about science, right? So you can see
we reject science.
Right.
Klingon scientists, that's a bigger, stronger, sharp edge.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So hopefully, Paul, you're able to see that the factions are, different and true to their form from the thing. You can see that the Federation. So one of the Federation's weaknesses is when we go into systems and we find like a pre-warp civilization who's sitting there with a bunch of free buildings you can just take over, the Federation cannot invade there. The Federation can't even hegemony it. The Federation will not mess with pre-warp civilizations. We have to leave them out. Now, the Federation special rule is every time we discover those, we get a free culture, but I can't ever touch that. So I can hegemony post-warp civilizations and get them to join the United Federation of Planets, but pre-warp, I can never touch. So that's my rules. The Klingons rule has the can't retreat and getting culture for killing stuff. The Romulans rules they are a suspicious race. So whenever you have a trade deal with the Romulans, they got to put the trade deal card you give them face down. So in the first turn, they don't get the resources until the second turn. They don't trust you. But the Romulan bonus is they have a bunch of research cards that when they research it, they get culture in addition to their bonus. So they're incented to develop their research and they get culture for that. So each faction is a different thing they can do that generates culture. The Ferengi, for example, they put up some preview rules around the Ferengi. The Ferengi generate culture from their production because they're all about the money. They're all about Latinum, right? So the Ferengi can crank up production and they spend production for culture and they spend the culture for it's all about the money to the Ferengi, which is kind of neat. So you can see the factions are very, very different and really capture the essence of the different factions.
Yeah. Yeah, actually I'm getting they did a really good job of getting the flavor.
Yep. And I think we kind of covered everything. Craig, you want to give us some examples of some of the research we discovered? I didn't. Do you remember some of the stuff you?
Well, we did mention briefly in passing cloaking technology, which the Romulans start with, and the Klingons can develop, which means in a space battle, it's not simultaneously. You get to attack first, and then after they take casualties, then your opponent rolls their dice. So that's cool. That took 5 research to do, though. So that was going to be 5 turns to build that up. And then there was another one that I saw that gave me some kind of reroll advantage in combat and things like that. I mean, the 2 that I saw were both combat oriented, obviously.
Yep. So cool. So that's pretty much. Paul, do you think you got a pretty good feel for the game?
Yeah. I feel like I've kind of got my arms around it mentally.
Awesome.
You guys paint a good picture.
Oh, good. Well, let's do our final thoughts. So, Craig, in the style of a Klingon preparing to decloak and attack, please describe the patent pending D6G rating system.
Emails to Russ at thed6generation.com. Oh, Mister! Oof, that is you! Yeah, we are going to decloak and we're going to jump on them. But we don't know exactly what we're going to be jumping on. So we need to somehow rate the fearsomeness of what we are going to jump on. It will never be fiercer than us, but it is going to be fierce, and we need. So let's say if it's really fierce and we want to immediately attack in the other direction, it's going to be like 2. A 2+, so lower is better, they're better, and higher is we're better and we will destroy them. We will destroy them no matter what. But if it's lower, it will be more fun and glory, and if it's a higher number, then it will be easier and less fun and glorious.
Kapla, that's pretty good, Craig. So lower is better. It's a die roll you need to like the game. So, Craig.
On a D6.
Yes. What did you think of Star Trek Ascendancy?
Well, I am not a Star Trek guy. But having said that, I think this is a great game. It's an awesome 4X game, which is not generally my cup of tea. I love the way the board builds out. And it's not just flipping hexes and stuff like that. I love the fact that it's going to be random every turn every game because of the length of the space lanes. I love the fact that you're looking at the planet and the card combining. So that's adding to the replayability because Ryza isn't always going to be, the same. It's always going to be a culture planet, but it might be like a warp 3 super hard to crack nut. Or it might be a super easy nut to crack. And so I really, really enjoyed that. I think every phase of the game was pared down enough so that it didn't bog everything down. I liked it more than I like what was it? Star
Eclipse?
Help me out. What's that?
Which one? Eclipse?
No. I did to me, it seems simpler than Eclipse.
Okay.
It seemed to move very, very quickly. I really enjoyed that. The only thing was the luck of the draw, which you're going to get in any game. I mean, that sort of goes hand in hand with this game. What I like about the game, right, which is this random nature that brings it all together and makes it different every time. So, I mean, I guess it just comes along with the package that I like. But it was rough. I mean, Randy ran into 3 planets that were all, warp 3, level 3 warp capable civilizations that he couldn't get into. And then going around in either direction, he kind of connected with you in one direction, which allowed him to get in there and steal and blow up one of your planets, which was good. But in the other direction, he got nebula. And eventually the one ship that he could afford to send in that direction, it's going to fail a roll. And it did eventually fail its roll. So it was pure luck on his part that he got 3 hard planets and then 3 phenomenons in a row that just wore down that fleet until it died. So, I think you're going to occasionally get that, and you're going to have to be go into this with your eyes open. But at the same time, like we said, you have to be flexible and be able to work around something like that if it happens. That's wild. I mean, I would say his luck was much worse than your luck was good. And I think I had pretty much average luck. I had a decent spread of what I was getting. I got in where I needed to get in. And it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was an excellent execution of this type of game. I thought the theme was extremely well dealt with, well executed also. And it was just a fun, enjoyable, and it didn't bog down. It wasn't too slow for me. So some people might not think it's crunchy enough. I thought it was the perfect crunchiness.
So what's your rating?
I am going. What's that?
What's your rating?
I'm going to. Hey, it's my time, Mr. Chatty Box. I am going to give it a 3+. I'm going to say +1 if you're a Star Trek fan.
Ooh, nice. Okay, that's pretty good. All right, well, I'll go next, and then Paul, you can go last and give us your rating to Desire to Play.
I'm going to say 2+.
2+. Whoa.
And I think it's that good.
You really liked it. That's saying something, though, because Craig is not a 4X guy, people. You have to know that about Craig. He's not really.
Yeah, that's why because if you're not I'm not a 4X guy, and I liked it. I'm going to stick with it. 2+.
Wow.
You get your reroll if you're a Star Trek guy.
All right, that's great.
Yeah,
well,
I think that Gale Force 9 knocked it out of the park again. That's what I think.
Well, I'm with you, Craig. I think the map building is so innovative and different that it's really the sweet spot of the game. Coupling that with all the great components, it's just really a joy to watch the universe unfold and sort of see what happens. You do have that randomness that I know everybody's going to like, but that kind of comes part and parcel with 4X. I mean, you can't really have the Explore in 4X without some of that, right? Otherwise, there's probably ways that could mitigate it a little bit, and there is some science. So one of the things, for example, the Federation has research that lets you pick 2 planets and choose the one you get, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
And I think there's another one for the exploration cards. And there are also some optional rules that let you search through the technology deck and pick the things to research instead of making it random. So if you go that route, then you can mitigate some of this luck, I think. But I like it. I think that's part of the milieu, if you will, the genre.
Mm-hmm.
I think it captures the 4X. I think this is really interesting. Randy really enjoyed it as well and wants to play it again. That was his second playthrough with it. And he emailed us later saying he really enjoyed it, would like to try it another time. And Randy is a hardcore, like some super crunchy, like Eclipse is his favorite game kind of guy. And I really like Eclipse as well. But this gives you that nice feeling of playing Eclipse, but in a faster package that is more accessible for other people. So I think my daughters wouldn't probably get into Eclipse. It's a little too crunchy for them. I could totally see them playing this game, no problem. In fact, I'm looking forward to trying it with them this weekend. So yeah, I think it's a little more accessible version. You throw in there that you've got some friends who really like Star Trek, and you have no trouble getting people to play this game, and it won't overwhelm them with the rules. It's pretty easy to learn, right? Which I really like.
Right. Yep.
I've seen some negative reviews around the culture race part of the game. So I think a lot of players don't like it, but I think those are players who want it to be a war game, and it's not a war game, right? It's a 4X game, meaning there are multiple paths to victory. Most of those paths are contained in the culture race mechanic, right? So I am a science fleet. I get it from researching nebula. That's how I get to culture. Or I have a special rule as a Klingon player that if I destroy squadrons of 3 ships, I get culture. So maybe I never take over your home planet, but I keep harassing your small fleets and getting points that way, right? So there's different ways you can get that sort of thing. And I like that a lot because it lets them put a lot of cool sort of play styles into the different factions. And you can avoid the play style, but it's meant to be played that way, and it's kind of neat, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to add replayability to the other expansions, because not only do the expansions allow you to have more players, but even if you stick with 3 players, switching the Ferengi out is going to be a completely different play style than any of the 3 starting races. So that's going to be I think it's going to add a lot of interesting mechanics to the game for anybody at all. And also the expansions add more systems as well. So now there's more replayability and more exploration cards.
Yeah.
So there's more exploration cards, more systems, as well as a whole new faction.
I like that. I don't like it when games like this, the expansion is just the next guy. I like it when they take the opportunity to expand the whole thing a little bit.
Yeah, and they've been previewing all. So if you go to the Gale Force Night website, you can see the player panels and see their special rules for each faction. They've got samples of the systems, samples of exploration cards. It's really cool. And I think they also nailed it in terms of teaching. The reference cards are perfect. This is one of those games that could be overwhelming, and it just isn't. After you spend like 15 minutes explaining the high-level rules to everybody, you find after the first turn, you're all playing the game and thinking strategically. You're not asking each other over and over again. How does this rule work again? It's very straightforward.
Right.
And I really love what they did with warp travel. I think they nailed warping, which is something that's so quintessential to Star Trek. Such an iconic word that they invented that people use in everyday English now everywhere. The fact that they got that right in this board game I thought was critical and really well done. So I'm with you, Craig. I'm going to say it's a 3+, but +1 if you're any kind of 4X fan or a Star Trek fan. Either one of those, which makes
I might have been a little overzealous because it surprised me how much I liked it, but I'll stick with what I said.
So, Paul, having heard all of that, what is some of your enticements to play and your rating for wanting to try the game out?
Well, so you guys painted a great mental picture for me, and I'm kind of itching to go pick it up now.
There you go.
I think I might have to check a show sponsor and see if they carry, if you know what I mean.
Go. I know where you need to go for that.
But I do have a couple of questions before I give a rating and jump in with both feet. Mm-hmm. So Russ, you talked about the game encourages you to play to the flavor of the race. Mm-hmm. Does it feel like you're forced down that path, or just here's some nice bonuses, but you could still, I could still ignore the fact that the Klingons want to fight everybody?
No, I was hegemonying everybody.
Yeah, you could definitely ignore it.
Okay.
You can definitely go there. You're definitely skipping a power, but if you're dealt what's nice is if you're dealt a strange hand, like if the systems near your planet work out that hegemony's better, right? Or you've just got a great engine and you're better off just castling up as a Klingon and mining culture for the game for a quick win, that definitely works, right? But then when the other players come for you, you're a Klingon, so you can defend your empire well, but yeah, you could be a warlike Federation. In fact, my first game, I was a totally warlike Fed. I was flying around wiping people out, and they're like, how can you be the Federation? I'm saying, and I had to say, I'm the one with the beards, it's the Ultimate Universe Federation. So you can definitely play the antithesis of your faction, but the tools are there, and you will feel like you're playing Klingons, whether or not you take full advantage of it.
Gotcha. And now with the expansions, you guys mentioned there's the Ferengi and the Cardassians. Mm-hmm. I know you've only sort of seen previews and stuff. Does it feel like, in some games you get we're adding an expansion and it's just going to dilute things down because this new race is exactly like this other race with a different paint color, or okay, there's a lot of new flavor, but we've added the need for 20 erratas in there. Do you have any worries about that?
I don't think so, because the flavor for each faction is already built into the core mechanics, and so by just changing those decks and the cards, I think you're okay. I can tell by reading the Ferengi previews they're going to play completely differently than the other factions. I don't know what it'll do to game balance, so honestly I've never played them, but I don't think they're going to suffer from that. I don't think it'll dilute it. I think you'll be spoiled for choice. But I'm really liking the fact is, if I have 4 people that want to play a game with me and I really want to play this game, now with one of the expansions, I have an option to play an inclusive game with them. What I don't know is how much it bogs the game down, right? So I don't know if 4 and 5 players make the game feel too long and outstay its welcome with its relatively simple mechanics. That could be a thing. But I think the expansions are worth the price of admission anyway, just for the variety, even if you only play 3-player.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so now the big question is, you've talked about getting your kids to play it. Mm-hmm. So my mother's a bit of a sci-fi fan.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, she grew up on Star Trek. It's probably her favorite show, although close run with the New Doctors.
Okay.
But she's not a gamer per se.
Mhm.
Does this strike you as a game that could be a gateway for my mother into gaming? I mean, I know you've not met my mother, but
well,
you know,
have you gotten her to play any games before? What would you say was the crunchiest game you've ever gotten her to play?
the crunchiest game. I have not gotten her to play any of my nerd games before, but you know, she does like her Scrabble and her Rummy, and
so if you can get her to
those kind of games,
if you can get her to Settlers of Catan, which is usually a pretty good gateway game, because Settlers is kind of like modern day Monopoly in sort of a way. There's actually, for your mom, I would recommend Star Trek Settlers of Catan. So it's Settlers of Catan themed for Star Trek.
Gotcha.
I think she might like this game, but it does have some stuff in it that's a little gamery that might, my kids play War Machine. So just let me throw that out there. But it's a little gamery. So it's on the edge. I think it's accessible enough. Like, I think my wife could play it, Nicole, and she does dabble in games, but like I've had her play, like she's played Scythe and things like that. So she'll try those kind of games. She's played Pandemic. Like if you got someone like that, she'd probably be okay with it. But it's on the edge. Like I'd say casual gamers, you could totally get to play it. Non-gamers, it's tough. I don't know, Craig, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is, I think just alone looking at all the chits and bits all over the table is going to be very intimidating to a non-gamer. I think there are far better choices for if your real and true goal is to get your mom into gaming. I think there are easier avenues than this game. This game it's a nice streamlined game. It's really tight, but it is what makes it look cool to us, I think, would make it look intimidating to a non-gamer.
Paul, here's one.
Okay.
Star Trek Panic. Get your
there
mom
you go.
to play Star Trek Panic. That game is fantastic. It's simple and it's co-op. And it's got a full 3D model of the Enterprise right in the middle of the table. You can't go wrong. Star Trek Panic, it's a guaranteed win for your mom.
Okay. And the reason I bring my mom up is because when you were describing it, it sort of scratches that itch of, she doesn't like those games where you have to kill all the other players to win.
Yeah.
And this you still have I get to win, but you don't have to do it through fighting. So that's why I asked about the would my mom like it.
If you can get her to play Risk, if she plays games like Risk and is okay with a game that sort of kind of take over the map stuff, she might actually like this. So you might try with her. Yeah. Try the short version. But so given that, given your assessment of the would my mom like it factor. All right.
I think I got to go with you guys that from what I'm hearing, for me, it would probably be a 3+ with the reroll because I'm a fan of the Star Trek, and it does look like for my casual gamer friends, it would be a good one to play. So
sweet.
I'm right there with you.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy pre-Captain Con schedule here to join us on the show today. Craig and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Glad to be here.
Now,
it's a good break from all the spreadsheets.
Excellent.
Well, we're glad we could rescue you from those spreadsheets.
Exactly. Now, if folks want to know more about what you're up to or Captain Con or anything else, where should they go on the internet to find out?
So the three key places, CaptainCon.com is the website. Mm-hmm. We've got all of our latest updates are there, along with the current schedule of events for the show and all your buying your badge goodness. You can follow us on Facebook at we're CaptCon, CaptCon. So it's facebook.com/CaptCon, or just search for Captain Con and you'll find us.
Nice.
And you can also follow us on Twitter, and that's at NE Privateers. It's short for New England Privateers, not any the word. So N is in Nancy, E is in Edward Privateers, because we're Northeastern Pirates.
Sweet.
Why not?
There you go.
Well, great. Well, Paul, thanks again so much. Really appreciate it. Have a great, safe and happy holiday season, and we're looking forward
we'll
to seeing
see you right around the corner.
Yeah, right at Captain
Most
Con.
definitely.
Excellent.
Yes. You guys enjoy the holidays, and we'll see you post-holiday at the show.
Exactly. Take care now, Paul.
Absolutely.
This is brought to you by our friends, our listeners, our longtime companions who went through the drudgery and the time and the effort and the commitment to go to the Patreon page to check us out and to decide that they wanted to be a little piece of the D6 generation. And by supporting the D6 generation with their very generous donations of anything from 25, 50 cents, all the way up to $20 an episode, they help us continue doing what it is you're listening to right now. And this evening, I would like to thank Gustav, just Gustav, Harold John Vogel, Heng Aik Yong, Herko Kiljunen, and Hugh Wyeth. And I'm pretty sure I'm running less than 50% on that list. So thank you guys, and thank everybody who has stepped up and helped us put this show together on a regular basis for years now. Did you ever notice how hard it is to maintain your confidence in a vacuum? That's something that I think for many of my endeavors, at least over the last few years, have it's really just kind of faded into the background because it just happens so much. When you're doing a podcast, you don't have a lot of feedback at first. And if you look at the percentage-wise, if you look at it, you never get a lot of feedback from the vast majority of people who apparently may or may not be listening to your podcast. If you look at our download numbers, which spiked astronomically on our 200th episode, by the way, the Patreons, who are obviously at the pinnacle, we would say, of engagement with the show outside of downloading and listening, is still roughly around 1%, maybe a little more than 1% of our listeners engage with Patreon, which is great, which is awesome because they're we get to know their names and we meet a lot of them. Love to have more. Of course, there's always room for more, eh? But it's still 1% of the listenership, is engaged. And then, of course, more of you guys send emails and take part in the contests and stuff. And it's good. It's enough to keep us going. It's enough to prove to ourselves, at least, that those numbers, that they're not entirely inflated by whatever goes on the internet. Like a billion people no, the number's not even close to a billion. It's not even close to a million. Not even close to 100,000. Let's just leave it at that. But anyway, so anyway, we believe that you're out there, and that's all that really matters. But it's tough sometimes to remember that people are listening, and to maintain that faith and that confidence in your product and in what you're doing. And it's hard. In podcasting, we at least have those metrics. We have the download metrics. We have the Patreon numbers that we can look at. Writing is, I think, and I speak only for myself, I think I don't know if my path is more unique or more common. I have no idea. I know that opportunities continue to come up, which is awesome. And that's really the only metric I have. I'm told that the sales numbers are good for small books in small publishing and small, even in gaming circles, niche stuff. The Legacy of Shadow has only been out. Well, it's been about a year now, almost a year. those numbers are supposed to be pretty good. They're supposed to maybe even look into getting into bookstores, which would be awesome. But the numbers for the readership of those books, vanishingly small compared to the listenership of the podcast. So if you think like 1% of the podcast people are engaging at the Patreon level, and then I look at the numbers of book sales and 1% of that, and I would say, yeah, I get about 1% of the people who are buying the book, at least, are emailing me and telling me that they like it, which is great, or the other books. But it's hard, and it takes a lot. The book that I'm working on now is a fantasy book, an independent fantasy book, and I've been working on it for a year, which is longer than I've worked on anything. And it's probably because I haven't really, I sort of pitched it to somebody who said, yeah, that looks like cool. I'd like to read that book and see what happens. And that's it. So like I'm writing it kind of blind, kind of in the dark. And my faith and my confidence, which is always abysmally low, especially at the editing stage where I start reading what I wrote going, this makes no sense. I don't understand. And I've got, pages and pages and pages of notes of, oh, now I have to go back and fix that. Or no, now I have to go back and remember that this happens in this order. Just to give you an example. So I'm almost finished anyway, editing into a second draft, this book, which is by far the longest book that I've written so far. And it was hard, and it was hard. And Karen's theory is that I'm like super, super, super scared of what happens next, because the next thing for this book is it goes out into the wild where I have no friends and there's no one out there who gives a damn about our little podcast or who I am. And it's going to get judged 100% on its own merits. And that's terrifying to me. And so I think I've been dragging. I am a world-class procrastinator, which is intriguing because right now I'm recording this during the time we're supposed to be recording ads, and I haven't heard from Russ. So I'm not the only one. But anyway, I'm way worse than him. So I've been dragging my feet. So I have been, I'm almost done. I literally have 2.5 pages left before I'm finished with the second draft of the novel, because I changed the ending, of course. And so it took a lot longer to do the last chapter. But there were, in my editing notes, I had there were 4 chapters in a row, and the only note for each chapter was check the light source. And I'm reading this, I'm talking to myself from 6 months ago. I don't know what you're talking about. Check what light source? There is no light source. And then I get to a chapter. Oh, the sun just set. Oh, so I had to go back and I had to start writing about the light source in each of those, so it wasn't all of a sudden, oh, the sun set, but we haven't been mentioning the sun for the last 4 chapters. So I did that. Aha. And then I got to the next chapter where it talked about that battle that occurred all night long. And I went, oh my God, it can't be the sun setting. So now I then put another note in. I have to go back and change all of the sun setting to the sun sets earlier than that. And the moon has to rise on that one chapter where it's normally where the sun was. So it's craziness. All these weird little moving bits and pieces. And I'm in the dark is what I'm saying. And there's nothing normally Vince is awesome, and Brandon, his son, the editor, is awesome, and they're really good at kind of giving me some little boosts of confidence every now and then. And because I'm just kind of out in the wild on this one, seeing what sticks, it's weird, and it just keeps kind of grinding on. And hopefully this weekend, in and amongst Rogue One viewing, I will have the chance to finish up those last 2.5 pages, and then I have to read the whole thing again and smooth out all those edits. And then I'm really hoping I can get this done before Christmas, but I don't know. And it's just bizarre. It's bizarre to me because it's like working in a vacuum all over again. And my faith is, and I think of most of the creative people that I have talked to as an actor, as a writer, Matthew, you and I talk all the time about art. He's a great artist, and art. The most artistic people are very, very, very hyper self-critical. And I some of the most amazingly talented people in the world that I count among my friends are like that. We are just a neurotic lot where our creative efforts are concerned. And I can only hope that I'm half as good as those guys who think they suck because they're awesome. So what I have to do is I have to just accept that these offers that keep coming, some of which are pretty amazing at the moment, that's because these people have read my stuff and they like it, as opposed to, because there's always that little voice inside your head that my creativity is nothing compared to my subconscious, which can convince me on a regular basis of a million different reasons somebody might be saying something nice, aside from they just mean it. And so I just kind of have to focus on that at the moment and just kind of hope for the best. And that's kind of where I am. And I thought I'd give you a little update because I haven't done that in a little while. And the holidays are right around the corner, but and we will not be recording another show before that. So Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, Happy pleasant season to you all. Thank you for every amazing thing that has happened to me over the past year that would never have happened without this podcast, which means it would never have happened without every one of you listening to my voice right now. And that includes all of the cool dinners that I've gotten with amazing people, all of the going to Leeds with Russ, like all the great stuff that's happened with Steam Forged Games and all those guys. The job offers that I have that I would never have had. Every piece of writing, every word I put down that I get paid for has happened because of this podcast. And I don't ever forget that. And I don't intend to ever forget that. And no matter how neurotic and self-doubting I get here in the little pub that's full of unopened Kickstarter boxes, I never forget that it's because of you guys, that you amorphous, invisible beings that I'm speaking to right now as I speak into this boom mic alone in my basement with only my dog and my sleeping son in the house with me. Without you guys, none of this would have happened. And I would never have had the opportunity to come up with all of these convoluted, ridiculous reasons that people buy my books and offer to have me write things. So without you, I wouldn't be able to have tied myself into this pretzel. So thank you for that. And thank you guys for everything. And sincere best wishes in the season and for the new year. And that's about all I've got to say about all that. So thanks for listening and good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
And now another not-too-horrible hit from the D6Generation.com.
The first thing in gaming that really frustrates me, avoiding a cheesy army. The second thing in gaming that really frustrates me,
packing up the pieces
and avoiding a cheesy army. The third thing in gaming that really frustrates me.
Time to paint my models.
Packing up the pieces
And avoiding a cheesy army. The fourth thing in gaming that really frustrates me.
Playing with my meatballs.
Time to paint my models.
Packing up the pieces
And avoiding a cheesy army. The fifth thing in gaming that really frustrates me. Twilight Imperium.
Playing with my meatballs.
Time to paint my models.
Packing up the pieces
And avoiding a cheesy army. The sixth thing in gaming that really frustrates me.
Dice off the table.
5 hours of TI.
Look, a meatball pyramid.
Time to paint my models.
Maybe if I got some baggies.
And avoiding a cheesy army. The seventh thing in gaming that really frustrates me.
Him getting home on time.
Damn, it's by your foot.
5 more hours of TI.
This meatball's doing a handstand.
Time to paint my models.
Does the board go on top or bottom?
And avoiding a cheesy army. The eighth thing in gaming that really frustrates me.
Getting pwned by noobs.
Him getting home on time.
Then on your other foot.
Another 5 hours of TI.
Happy meatball circle.
Time to paint my models.
Where'd those rubber bands go?
And avoiding a cheesy army. The ninth thing in gaming that really frustrates me.
Keeping track of tokens.
Getting pwned by noobs.
Fine, 20 more minutes.
Dice off the table.
Still more hours of TI.
Line up my little meatballs.
Time to paint my models.
The box almost closes.
And avoiding a cheesy army. The 10th thing in gaming that really frustrates me.
Rulebooks with no index.
Keeping track of tokens.
Is that kid really 10?
You said 20 minutes ago.
Dice off the table.
Days and days of TI.
Aw, now they're holding hands.
Time to paint my models.
Maybe a tackle box.
And avoiding a cheesy army. The 11th thing in gaming that really frustrates me.
Dice that betray me.
Rulebooks with no index.
Which ship did I destroy?
He was older than he looks.
I'm not waiting up again.
Dice off the table.
An eternity of TI.
Meatball conga line.
Time to paint my models.
What about duct tape?
And avoiding a cheesy army. The 12th thing in gaming that really frustrates me. Staying in my budget.
Dice that betray me.
Where are the psychology rules?
I lost all my damage markers.
There's still age and treachery.
That's it, I'm going to bed.
Dice off the table.
Dying of old age while playing TI.
Meatball massacre.
What's the website for painted figs?
Screw it, I'm just leaving it set up.
And avoiding a cheesy army.
Happy holidays from the D6 generation.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
everybody,
Christmas.
and
Happy holidays,
Hanukkah.
everybody.
The preceding Not Too Horrible hit was brought to you by
The D6Generation.com and their wives.